quite frankly, it could be disastrous to wait until 2009 and be unsuccessful.
Concerned about our police and fire departments, District 2 Council member Wendy Gruhl wants to know if all departments will be affected by any cuts caused by the loss of the telephone users tax.
Now, what percentage of the city's budget is public safety?
About 60%.
60%.
For police and fire.
So, do you believe in any scenario that comes forward, all departments will have to assume some, if we do not have the $270 million?
You would have obviously a number of options. If you were to decide to exclude public safety, that is fire and police, that would mean much more draconian cuts in the other departments. You have about $1.6 billion also in, again, financial bonded indebtedness obligations and other financial commitments. And so when you add that to the approximately $1.6 billion that is public safety, police and fire, that brings you to 3.2. You don't have a lot of other places that you can go. And so you would either have very draconian cuts or, depending on the decisions of the mayor and the council, you might be looking at eliminating certain services.
And joining us now by phone is District 2 Council member Wendy Gruhl. Council member, thanks for taking the time to join us on Council Week in Review.
Always glad to be with you, Jack.
I follow this stuff, and I can't follow this stuff. Currently, we have a 10% telephone user tax in effect. Federal government now saying that we could no longer collect that tax. Is that right?
That's correct. But I think the point to be made on this telephone users tax is that the rules changed over time. It's not that we have been collecting this money illegally over the years. It's that they're saying we can no longer have it based on the federal excise tax. And many states who do not have Prop 218 have just switched over to new calculations. But in the state of California, we've passed Proposition 218, which requires a vote of the people. And because it's considered a different kind of a tax, it requires us to go back to the voters. But in fact, what we're suggesting is reducing the tax that they're currently paying. We are in the process of an appeal and a lawsuit over the calculations that had been used before, because we felt we could still use the formula we had previously, but I think we felt it was critically important that the $270 million that we currently get through that tax, that it would be devastating to our budget to not go to the voters and suggest to them that we are in fact reducing the amount of tax they would be paying on their telephone use.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Councilmember Smith, who's on the Budget Committee, pointed out that there was also a loss of transfer money from the Department of Water and Power. So this is kind of a double whammy, is it not?
It is, and I think that that is why we have moved somewhat quickly to say, what can we do to ensure that we still provide the needed services to our constituencies, police and fire and street services. Our city administrative officer is supposed to come back with us and the chief legislative analyst and share with us what does it mean in real impacts, $270 million going out the window.
When would that tax actually have to be stopped? When would the collection have to stop, and when would you no longer have the use of the revenue?
That is all dependent upon the current lawsuit and appeal, and no one really knows how long that will take. We decided it was much more prudent to actually have the discussion now and explain that just the rules have changed, and because of 218, we are required to go to the vote of the people.
You mentioned a few moments ago the tax currently stands at about 10%, but if it makes it to the February 5th ballot, you're only going to ask for 9%. Why the reduction? That's still a loss of, almost $30 million, isn't it?
It is, but we believe that it is appropriate at this time to go with a reduction, to go down to that point and to demonstrate that we are also going to look at ways in which we can tighten our belt.
Here's where I'm just thoroughly confused. Maybe you can help us out. I thought to impose a new tax, it would have to be approved during a municipal election where you would need presumably 2/3 of the voters to approve the tax. A general election, only a majority needed. This isn't actually a general election, is it? It's February 5th is a presidential nominating primary, I think.
Well, and it's my understanding that it is considered a general election, and we are, basing that on the opinion we've received from the CAO and the city attorney's office, which would only require that 51%.
And of course right, and of course that's also the vote in which we would possibly change some of the term limits for statewide office holders.
That is correct. That is something that's being proposed by the state legislature.
Boy, all kinds of things on what
It's a busy year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, what came from, the mayor had asked the city administrative officer to come forward with a variety of proposals, which is what was before the city council this week, because the concern was waiting an additional year and uncertainty, and what would happen during that period of time if we weren't able to collect. Again, this is an existing tax that people have been paying for many, many years, and the only reason we are going back to the voters is because the federal government has indicated the use of the federal excise tax is the problem, and how we're calculating it. That's the only issue, not about whether or not it's legal or not.
Of course, the big question that you discussed quite a bit around the council chamber was what happens if you don't get approval for a replacement tax and you do lose, say, $270 million? What gets lost? What do we miss?
Well, it figures out to, 3,000 police officers. You look at every single budget, and we would have to cut every single department within the city of Los Angeles at a time when I believe people are wanting more services.
You have a very short time window now to convince everyone that the telephone users tax is necessary. Among other things, you've got an October 17th deadline, don't you?
That is correct. There's never an optimal time, and because of deadlines, that is why we have to move fairly quickly to get it on the ballot. But there will be a lot of discussion, wholeheartedly supported Mr. Smith and Mr. Zine and Ms. Hahn's motion, which said we need to go out to those neighborhood councils and get their input as we move forward. The time between now and February will be an opportunity for us to share why this position, why we're in this position in the first place. Those of us that follow city politics, as you said, this is confusing even for those in the know, much less someone who does not understand some of the complexity of this issue.
One of the other complexities, of course, is that you have to declare, in some sense, an emergency for the city in order to get it to qualify for that early ballot. Emergency in what sense?
Well, it's been deemed, as they've said, a 218 emergency, which requires that says the fact that we would lose that money under the current taxation that we have, that it is, and that $270 million is enough for us to have to go to that next step.
The next step, presumably, would be if it did go to the ballot and it was approved by the voters, would there be any loss? Would there be any lack of continuity between the collections of the old tax and a new tax?
That is, our understanding is no, there would not be, because the legal remedies in which we are moving forward in this next, we wouldn't know potentially for another year, and so during that time, this would replace the existing tax.
Well, this is almost mind-boggling, and I hope you'll keep us up to date as this moves forward. One of the other things that you discussed in council, of course, this week, from the possibility of losing money to saving money. Lights out Los Angeles. What does that mean? How can we save money, and what does this mean to the whole issue of the Department of Water and Power and energy generation for the city?
Well, in Los Angeles, we're very used to recycling. We're very used to the fact that we have to be able to reduce our water consumption. But until there's a crisis, we forget that there's an energy problem. And so Sydney, Australia did a program where they had lights out in Sydney, Australia for 1 hour. And during that time period, they reduced their use of carbon dioxide by 25 tons during that period of time. It's the equivalent of taking almost 49,000 cars off the road for 1 hour. And so we suggested that we have, with the County of Los Angeles, Yvonne Burke, and then the City of Los Angeles, my colleague Jan Perry and I, which would be on October 20th, from 8 to 9 p.m., to turn out the lights, non-essential lights, in civic buildings, in businesses, and even people at home, to remind ourselves that saving energy is saving our environment, and it also is saving money.
Presumably you don't see this as a one-time only impact.
No, I've used the phrase, this is not a one-night stand. This is the beginning of an effort to educate the public about what they can do as individuals to reduce our dependency on foreign oil, to ensure that we're saving energy at home. Turning off that light in that kitchen after you walk out of it or out of your bedroom can make a real difference in the city. If everyone did their part, we would be able to reduce our energy consumption.
And maybe even have people talk to each other for hours.
That is right. Someone asked me, I said, we'll have, with my 4-year-old, we'll actually have a flashlight or sit there and talk about what it means. And I think that's part of what this effort is educating individuals, and sometimes starting with the very young. So as they grow up, they remember that we need to not only recycle, save water, but also save energy.
And of course, finally, there's another huge education program, an opportunity, which has to do with the CFLs, the city program to offer free compact fluorescent light bulbs to replace the incandescent or the regular light bulbs. How can the people watching this broadcast on Channel 35 participate?
Well, we've given out over 400,000 compact fluorescent light bulbs distributed by the city. We are getting into the next phase, which is even more light bulbs. I'm handing them out at some of the fairs. I'm having my Child Health and Safety Fair. Each of the council offices will be doing events to get these light bulbs out in the Department of Water and Power. But you can contact the Department of Water and Power and ask them for where they would be able to get some of those fluorescent light bulbs. They save money and they save energy.
I've been using them at home for years, and it takes about half a second to come on, but after that, the light is wonderful. It works just fine.
It is, and it lasts a lot longer than your normal, or average light bulbs.
Absolutely. District 2 Councilmember Wendy Gruhl, thanks for joining us again on Council Week in Review.
Thanks, Jack.
In a vote of 11 ayes and 2 noes, your Los Angeles City Council voted to instruct the city attorney to prepare the necessary documents to place a telephone users tax on the February 5th, 2008 presidential primary election ballot. You can listen to city council meetings as well as committee and commission meetings on the telephone by using the city's council phone system. In the downtown area, dial 213-621-CITY. In West LA, dial 310-471-CITY. For the San Pedro area, dial 310-547-CITY. And in the San Fernando Valley, dial 818-904-9450. Just follow the recorded instructions for the meetings you want to hear. And don't forget, on October 20th, between the hours of 8 and 9 p.m., Lights Out Los Angeles. Turn off your lights in support of energy conservation. And remember, you can watch all Los Angeles City Council meetings live in their entirety on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays beginning at 10 a.m. On Sundays, you can watch the replay of all the week's meetings, also beginning at 10 a.m. Council Week in Review can be seen Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. On Saturday and Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending October 5th, 2007. On behalf of Antoinette Feliciano and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
Hola, soy Antonio Villarraigosa, alcalde de Los Ángeles, y septiembre es el mes de la herencia latina. Este mes honramos nuestro pasado y destacamos las obras de los artistas locales que mantienen las tradiciones latinas vivas y vibrantes en nuestras comunidades. Los Ángeles es donde el mundo se reúne. Y les animo a todos ustedes que exploren las varias facetas de la cultura latina participando en las festividades de este mes. Para la lista de todos los eventos, visiten nuestra página de red latino.lacity.org.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
morning. Today is Friday, October 12th, 2007. Welcome to the meeting of the Los Angeles City Council. We meet Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. For those of you who are not able to be here today, we encourage you to watch on Channel 35 through our website or also through Council phone. Today is a day we normally have presentations, and we have a few. I'd like to introduce our Council member Bernard Parks for our first presentation.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to ask my guest to come up is Janae Dubois. This young lady needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce her anyway. Very talented actress, performer, has delighted audiences on the stage, the big screen, television, for many decades. She's a two-time Emmy Award winner for her role as Miss Avery in the Eddie Murphy animated series, The PJs. She began her acting career on Broadway before coming to Hollywood. Her films include I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, Shaft, Stranded, A Piece of Action, A Man Called Adam, Diary of a Mad Housewife, and 5 on the Black Hand Side. Her TV movies includes Sophie and the Moonhangers for Lifetime, Other Women's Children for Lifetime, Roots 2, and the unforgettable urban classic JT, which garnered a Peabody Award. Cable's highest award, the Cable Ace, went to Mrs. Dubois for the Best Supporting Actress for her work in Other Women's Children. As a seasoned series actress, she has a bright list of television credits for a portrayal of the vivacious neighbor, Willona, in Norman Lear's long-running series Good Times, and as the beloved grandmother on The Wayans and recurring roles on The Golden Palace and Facts of Life. No one can escape the memorable musical creation of Moving On Up, theme song of The Jeffersons, written and performed by Ms. Dubois on the show's opening title. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Dubois is recognized internationally for her accomplishments as a performer, but some of her most impressive works extend way beyond the entertainment industry. It includes poetry, music, charity work, public speaking, and art. In fact, many of her gifted art collection have graced the homes of Cecily Tyson, Arsenio Hall, Burt Reynolds, Pat Richardson, and Magic Johnson. She gives her time and knowledge and experience to over 90 charities and organizations nationwide. She's been heralded and especially recognized by the Mayor of the City of Los Angeles, the Atlanta City Council, the Veterans Administration, former Mayor Andrew Young, Martin Luther King III, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and the American Cancer Society, and now the Los Angeles City Council. She's hosted the high blood pressure telethon on KTTV Channel 11 in Los Angeles, and is one of the major financial sponsors and development of the Pan-African Film Festival, which this City Council has helped support financially the last several years. She's a founder and chairperson of the Board of Directors of the Pan-African Film Festival. She works tirelessly as the Board of Directors of the Black Hall of Fame. We wanted to honor her by this resolution for all of her accomplishments, but I know her as a fight fan also. Many times in my younger years when I used to travel for the fights, she and I would meet each other in Vegas or Atlantic City or Houston for some major fight, and we'd sit in the lobby and talk for hours about all the things that were going on in the sports world. So that's how I got to know her, and it's just, for years we called her Willona, but now I'm going to call her by her proper name,
Yes.
Janae Dubois.
Thank you. Sometimes, with a person with a mouth like mine that talks all the time, I am really choked up, and I'm very proud and happy to receive this Citations Award, this honor, this by one of my good friends, you. Thank you. God bless you, and I hope that God gives me the spirit to keep going on and keep doing as I have been for the past 40-some years. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Councilmember Labange for our next presentation.
Congratulations. Okay, good to see you. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Good morning, Madam President, members of the Council, Madam City Clerk, Madam City Attorney. It's a wonderful Friday in Los Angeles. And this morning with Olga Gavay, our great, give her a big hand, our Cultural Affairs General Manager. We did something special today. We want to ask all the groups that we recognize to come and join for their anniversary. Please join us right here at the podium right here. We organized a little appreciation. The new General Manager of Cultural Affairs felt it was important, Mr. Miller, that we step up and we organize those who've been in Los Angeles. So we want to salute those, and we did in a very nice program in the Rotunda. Theater West was honored for 45 years. Give them a one clap. SciArc, 35 years. One clap.
Of us.
AZ, Tony Hsieh's International Dance Theater, 30 years. One clap. Actors Gang, 25 years. Art Services for the Disabled, 25 years. Now we got to practice, everybody. Let's do it one time. Ready? One time. Ready? You do 1, 2, 3. Okay, we got it down there. Thank you for the glasses, Young G. I appreciate that. You go.
Okay. Halcyon Center for Child Studies.
One clap. Come on. Celebration Theater.
International Documentary Foundation.
Outfest.
Rayford Rogers Modern Ballet.
Stage for the Arts.
About Productions.
Do this one.
Grupo de Teatro Sinergia.
Los Angeles Forum for Architecture. Community Build.
Diavolo.
East Los Angeles Classic Theater.
Heart Project.
Inner City Filmmakers.
Pan-African Film Festival.
Virginia Avenue Project.
Window Between Worlds.
24th Street Theater.
Chamber Music Palisades. Vox Femina Los Angeles.
Extra Magazine.
And Cigarette Theater Company.
And a big clap for everybody. And what you see, Madam President, behind me are those in the art community who for many years have influenced and enhanced the quality of life of all Angelinos. And they gave us one challenge, right, Olga? They said they want to advocate more for the arts, which we should, to enhance the quality of life. So let's give all these very distinguished organizations a big hand, and we're going to see you in the room for special presentations again in the back. Give them a big hand. Oh, there we go. Let me move that over real quick there. Good job. Sergeant, can you help me here?
Thank you, Mr. Labange. And welcome again to our wonderful new general manager, who so happy to have you here in Los Angeles. And I know, Mr. Labange, I think you have one more presentation.
Well, as long as nobody's here, I'm going to do as many as I can. You know.
Seize the moment.
All right. Give all the art theater, all the community a big hand again for their work right there. Thank you so much. Come on up, fellas. Right now, we're going to celebrate and kick off Architecture Month because we know what a grand city hall we have here in Los Angeles, one of the greatest of all buildings and many buildings. And I thought it was appropriate that we in the council, along with our mayor, Antonio Villaraigosa, and Olga Gavay, who's the great general manager of cultural affairs, recognize architecture. Architecture in the city of Los Angeles is world renowned for its many famous architects and architectural enthusiasts. The city of Los Angeles is home to the largest chapter of the American Institute of Architects with nearly 3,000 members. And the American Institute of Architects will celebrate its 150th anniversary. Give them a big hand for that. AIALA is working on a varied and diverse interests in numerous architectural societies, historical preservationists, and conservancies. Their goal is for better educating the community about the importance of architecture. And I know we have great students here who are champions, and you can see that someone thought about how to build this beautiful chamber.
thought how to make this building special. So we want you to remember and always enjoy it. When you're in an old public building, look up to the ceiling and you can see some art that you never thought was there. That's what architecture have done. That's why Los Angeles is in a very unique position that merits this type of recognition. So therefore, on adoption of this resolution, the mayor of the great city of Los Angeles, along with the unanimous support of the city council, as well as our city controller and our city attorney, hereby commend the architects of Los Angeles and the AIA, the American Institute of Architecture, for leading us in championing this month of recognition. Hear, hear. Mike Inamoto is going to say a few words on behalf of the architects.
Councilman and council members, thank you very much for this great honor. I just want to let you know that this month of October, the AIA Los Angeles has multiple events throughout the entire month, culminating in our special event called Mobius and the Open Space Summit. So please attend all of our events at the Pacific Design Center. Thank you very much, Councilman.
And also we have Mr. Wright here, and you got a little relationship
Thank you, Tom.
with the history of that.
Thank you, Olga. Thank you, Tom.
Give them a big hand, the architects of Los Angeles. Olga, stay with me. And finally, Madam President, we want to salute Latino Art Beat for their national art recognition. And give them a big hand. Come on up here, everybody from Latino Art Beat. Give them a big hand. Here they're coming right now. This is recognition for a national organization. Olga, if you would just read that as I gather them up here.
Okay. Latino Art Beat became a national arts organization during 2003, its 5th anniversary year. Its annual art competition is available to young high school artists around our great nation to allow expression through the visual arts and their interpretation and vision of Hispanic Latino heritage. Latino Art Beat's focus is on youth at risk and enabling young aspiring artist contestants an opportunity at public recognition for their artistic talents, encouragement not only to stay in high school but to graduate from high school, and ultimately by the award of scholarships to the winners, affording them opportunities at higher education, which they might not have had otherwise. Latino Art Beat has offered this competition to Los Angeles students since 2003. Its local partners have included the mayor's office. I just saw the mayor coming in. The Department of Cultural Affairs, which is my great department. The Department of Parks and the Los Angeles Unified School District, with central support from Beyond the Bell branch. This year, ArtShare LA, a prominent community-based not-for-profit local arts organization, has joined the partnership. Their mission is to shape lives through art, education, and community action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Give Olga a big hand there. All the way from Chicago, the great city of Chicago, over 2,000 miles away on Route 66 you came, and you're head of Latino Art Beat for 10 years.
Yes.
We welcome you here, and this grant has helped make this all happen. Please, for brief remarks.
Thank you very much. Being president of Latino Art Beat, I'm thrilled to be here in Los Angeles today. A little dizzy from the traveling, but I want to announce this is our 10th anniversary. On a national basis, we've given out over $2 million in scholarships to young Latino high school artists around the country. Los Angeles is the biggest building segment of our art competition. Thank you so much for this recognition.
This is Don Rossi Nizio from Chicago, who did that here in L.A. Give him a big hand.
Thank you very much.
Al Cortez. From Beyond the Bell, Al Cortez of LA Unified.
Good morning, City Council. I just want to thank you on behalf of Los Angeles Unified School District and Beyond the Bell for your support of the Latino Art Contest, as well as the support of Beyond the Bell and the numerous programs that we have. Our partnership with the city and with other community-based organizations help keep our students, our young adults safe until late at nights on our parks and on our school sites. And I want to thank you for your support always of the programs of Los Angeles Unified School District. On their behalf, thank you.
This is a great picture of Beyond the Bell and on Olga Gavai of our Cultural Affairs. Let's give them all a big hand, these fine young students. Here, here. We're going to go in the back and make the...
Thank you so much, Mr. Labange. I'd like to acknowledge, we're going to go to our next presentation, Mr. Weiss and the mayor for our next presentation.
Boom, boom. Walk slow, Jack. Here we go. Good job. I know. Get in here. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, right there. Boom, boom, get up here.
Carlos gets upset. He's saying
Yeah.
it's gonna hate this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Students, this way, students. Here we go. See you guys.
Thank you.
I know, that would be great. I would really enjoy it. No, look who's talking. We're going to make a phone call.
Okay, we need a mayor with us. We need a mayor. All right, showtime. All right, good morning, colleagues. I am pleased to be joined here by 3 undergraduate alumni of the University of California, Los Angeles, Councilmember Reyes, and a graduate student, Mayor Villaraigosa, and Councilmember Gruhl. Our colleague, who is a law school graduate, Jose Huizar, who also graduates like myself, is not here. Hopefully we'll see him here this morning. We're here today to introduce the council and the city formally to the new Chancellor of UCLA, Gene Block. Welcome, Chancellor. Chancellor comes to us from Virginia, where he has held a series of posts, both as an academic and as an administrator. But make no mistake, this is someone who comes to UCLA as a serious scientist. We were just talking a few moments ago about how he has transported at least part of his lab out here to UCLA, where it's being staffed by a couple postdocs. You still have some lab work back at UVA. And this is someone who is going to take every aspect of UCLA, including certainly the academic aspect, by storm. Now, this morning, as you were all driving in, you probably heard the news about the Nobel Peace Prize. And on the BBC this morning, they had a discussion with some academics from around the world who are addressing one interesting issue. Why is it that when the Nobel Prizes are awarded this each year in science, they invariably go to people who have affiliations with American universities? There's an overwhelming percentage of Nobel Prizes in the sciences that go to American-based universities, and I learned this stat this morning. 1 in 8 Nobel Science Prizes, 1 in 8 over the years, have gone to California. What is it about the U.S. and California that's different from the rest of the world? And what they focused on, these academics from around the world, was the connectivity, the connections between alums and their universities that are forged in America that aren't forged in other places. Those connections aren't formed by accident. They're formed because people develop great admiration and respect for the people at the top. And all of us who have a Bruin background know that Gene Block is going to do an extraordinary job over the next several years at reinforcing those ties here in Los Angeles and throughout the world. Chancellor, we are very proud to have you leading the greatest university in Los Angeles, and we're delighted to have you here with us this morning. Welcome, Chancellor. And now we're going to hear from our mayor.
A partisan you are, Mr. Weiss. Let me just say that I'm very excited to be here to introduce Chancellor Block to all of you. I've had an opportunity to talk to him upon his confirmation and meet with him on a number of occasions, including share a meal with him. And I can tell you that we are blessed here in the city of Los Angeles to have 3 great universities, and in fact 3 world-class universities, but one of them, and the one that's closest to my heart, is UCLA, where I graduated from. And I can tell you, our hospital is now the number 3 hospital. It used to be number 5, is now the number 3 hospital in the United States of America. I don't have to tell you that we have Nobel laureates and some of the finest teachers and professors anywhere in the country. We've won 100 championships, everybody, in sports, and in every sport, and one in football lately, but we're working on that. And I can tell you that when you look at this university and the fact that 37,000 students, 27,000 faculty and staff, a $3.7 billion budget, the connection, not just between the alumni, but the connection between the university and the city is great. At a dinner with Chancellor Block, we discussed the reality that in many ways Los Angeles' unfair advantage with other cities is that we have UCLA, and UCLA's unfair advantage is their connection to the city. So I'm very excited to have the former Provost and Vice President of the University of Virginia, another great public institution of higher education in the United States of America, here at UCLA. He's hit the ground running. I'm looking forward to working with Chancellor Block in the coming years. So welcome to the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you.
We'll go by district number. Councilmember Ed Reyes.
Thank you, Councilmember Wise. Thank you, Mayor. It really is an honor to be here because I see the good work UCLA is doing. It's a great program very few know about. It's called UCLA in LA. And they actually come into Pico Union, they go into South LA, they go into East LA, and they share their resources. They talk about how you bring in those students who are underrepresented in the university at the undergraduate and graduate level. They understand that the uniforms our children are wearing in prisons should be uniforms that they should be wearing in professional schools, in professional environments, as doctors, lawyers, even the uniform of elected officials. But these are the types of opportunities UCLA is creating. For that, I thank them. So, Chancellor Block, you follow a long line of great chancellors, Chancellor Young and everyone since that point, at least the people I've met when I was in undergraduate. I look forward to working with you. Look forward to expanding the UCLA and LA programs. And perhaps, just perhaps, UCLA student body will reflect the population base of LA, if not this country. Thank you very much.
Cleanup hitter, Councilmember Wendy Gruhl.
Thank you, and I will be quick as well. UCLA is more than just an educational institution for us here in Los Angeles. It is a place, as Mr. Reyes said, where it represents the diversity, and even more so, hopefully in the future, the diversity of Los Angeles, but is a partner with the city of Los Angeles. I can't tell you how many times, Chancellor, that we have met with some of the leaders at the university on the issues of transportation and housing and architecture, social issues, and the research and the programs and the students who come to us with their graduate papers and ideas on which we can take and make public policy. And so we stand here welcoming you to Los Angeles and also challenging you to encourage that kind of partnership here in Los Angeles. And the best thing that Ed is mentioning UCLA in LA is they have a map that shows all the programs that they have throughout the city of Los Angeles. They also have a map of how many graduates still live in the city of Los Angeles. And there's a high percentage, I don't know the number, I'm looking at you to know if you know the number, but a large number stay here in Los Angeles and give back.
What district do they stay in, Councilmember?
They do stay more in your district, Mr. Weiss. Yes, they do. District 5, right around that UCLA campus. But it is so great, and the four of us, and I won't point out the USC people here around the campus. We do have a friendly debate every year on a special day on a football game, but it is one in which we celebrate UCLA and its involvement. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for UCLA, for the internship program that they allowed me to participate in, that gave me my taste of wanting to be in civic government and to be an elected official. So welcome, thank you, and we look forward to many, many years of us working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilwomen, Councilmen, for this wonderful introduction to Los Angeles. I recognize, as all of you do, that we really have three great research institutions in Los Angeles: USC, California Institute of Technology, and UCLA. And I can assure you that we will all work together to the benefit of Los Angeles. I've had discussions with the President Sample, with President Chameau, and we're all dedicated to creating new opportunities within Los Angeles that will benefit our universities, our institutions, but benefit the city as well. UCLA does have an important impact on the community of Los Angeles. I think last year's figures were 300,000 people in Los Angeles served by the medical center, 500,000 people that took advantage of our arts programs. Our students are engaged in more than 200 civic activities, groups throughout the city, attempting to make lives better for people of Los Angeles. So we're here in Los Angeles, we're dedicated to Los Angeles, and as the mayor said, we plan to use Los Angeles as our unfair advantage when we compete with other institutions, and we're going to argue that Los Angeles is the most dynamic, the most rapidly changing city in America. I think that is undisputable that this is one of the most dynamic and exciting places to be. We want to turn this into a tremendous educational opportunity for our students, and in doing that, hopefully our students will also give back to the community. In that regard, one activity that we've been talking about the last several months is creating across the UCLA campus a problem-solving institute that will deal with large social issues in Los Angeles, in the nation. It's an institute that will bring together the very best and brightest on our campus and other campuses to deal with important issues. So we'll begin to focus our effort on a few very important problems that will benefit the city and also be of great educational importance for our students. So I'm deeply appreciative of the greetings I've received from everyone, the warmth of the city, and I hope to be able to deliver on my promise of making Los Angeles a better place for all of us to live through the efforts at UCLA. So thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. I just want to remind everyone that we are still 3-0 in PAC conference in our football, so let's not give up hope, folks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is for you.
Thank you.
Want to do a photo?
Sure.
Want to do it here? Want to go back or we just do it?
Over here.
Okay. Yeah, come on.
Let's put you in the middle. Okay.
Jose. Did he go
Motor.
Oh, that's right.
He went to UCLA Law School. He went to UCLA Law School and Princeton. This is beautiful. This is beautiful.
Come on, Mr. Bruin. Jose Weezer.
Get on this side. Get on this side so there's balance. We want you in the picture.
You can't hide from it now, Jose.
We're very
Our next presentation is with Council District 7.
Right next door, the 11th District. Bless you. Thank you for everything you do, especially the flyaway you just put in. Come on down.
And can I have a point of personal privilege? I just want to acknowledge the young women from Westchester High School. I know that they're going to be... Westchester Little League. Let's give them a big hand. I can't be here for them. I know that Bill's going to do that, but I just wanted to congratulate them, and it's good to see you all.
Mr. Alarcon, if you would give us just 2 seconds, we're going to go ahead and call the roll and run through the agenda real quickly. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti, 10 members present, and a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. First orders of business.
Approval of the October 9th minutes.
Mr. Wesson moves. Mr. Parks seconds.
Next item is commendatory resolutions for approval.
Those will be approved.
Madam President, would you like to go through public comments at this time?
No, I'd like to run through the agenda, please.
Okay, we have requests to consider number 7, item number 7. There's a request to consider to continue this to October 26th.
That will be continued till October 26th, you said?
October 26th, yes.
Okay, that will be continued.
The next item is item 59, and that there is a request to continue this to October 16th.
That will be continued.
First item is an item notice for public hearing.
Okay, anyone like to call that item special? If not, Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
10 ayes.
Thank you. Next items?
Next is item numbers 2 through 29, and those are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay. Go ahead.
Madam President, item number 27 and 29, there are 2 reports on one file, and motions are required for those.
Okay, I think we'll hold those on the desk, right? Oh, yes. 29 special, okay. 29 special.
Item 21 special.
21 special for Mr. Rosendahl. 22 special. Okay, so 21 you're calling special. I'm calling 22 special. And you said item...
Item 26, reversible lane. Continue that until next Wednesday.
Okay, till next Wednesday. So any other items other than item 21? Yes. Item 11? 27. Okay. Any other? Yes, Mr. Parks.
On items 4, 5, and 6, we hold them together and call them special.
4, 5, and 6?
Yes. You're going to put some language on 50.
Any other specials, colleagues? If not colleagues, that is items 4, 5, and 6. Item 11, 21, 22, 27, and 29 have been called special. Any other specials? If not, Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
10 ayes.
Okay. And the items that have been continued were item number 7 and item number 26, correct?
Yes.
And
As well as,
okay, yes. And item number 59.
Madam President, just for the record, item number 2 is an ordinance, and since there are not 12 members, it will be carried over for 1 week.
Okay, that will be carried over. Any other specials on those items? If not, Madam Clerk, open
Madam President?
Yes.
May I have 11 just to give a verbal...
Mr.
amendment?
Reyes has called that special.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes. Yes, Ms. Hahn. Please have Ms. Hahn is here. Thank you. If we can open the roll again on those items, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Those items have been approved. Next item?
Next are items 30 through 56, and those are items which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required.
Any specials, colleagues? Yes, Ms. Perry?
52 and 53.
Thank you.
Now, can I go on?
Any other specials? If not, Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Thank you. Next items?
Next are items 57 through 58, and those are closed session items. Would
Those
you like
held on the desk, please. And we will wait on the, it's not quite 10:45. Okay, and then 59 was continued to next week.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Alarcon, for your patience, and Mr. Reyes allowed us to quickly get through the agenda and those special items. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Members and people in the audience, it's my pleasure to join with Councilmember Reyes to announce that today is Los Angeles Latino AIDS Awareness Day, and we are going to recognize 2 organizations that have promoted this cause not just on one day out of the year, but every day out of the year, and in doing so have increased the opportunities to reduce the negative impacts of HIV and AIDS in our community. And so, with that, I'd like to thank Bienestar and the Wall Las Memorias for joining with us to proclaim today as Los Angeles Latino AIDS Awareness Day. First of all, let me talk a little bit about Bienestar, and then I'll ask Councilmember Reyes to talk about the Wall Las Memorias, which is in his district. Bienestar is a grassroots nonprofit community service organization established in 1989 and originated as a direct result of neglect and non-existent HIV/AIDS services for the Latino community. Since their establishment, Bienestar has evolved into a multi-service, multi-center agency offering services throughout Los Angeles County, San Bernardino, and San Diego. The team is comprised of bilingual and bicultural staff and volunteers and are demographically, culturally, and linguistically representative of the communities that they serve. Their health models have set the standard for excellence for peer-driven services throughout the United States and Latin America. Bienestar is committed to enhancing the health and well-being of the Latino community and other underserved communities, and accomplishes this through community education, prevention, mobilization, advocacy, and the provision of direct social support services. It is particularly a pleasure for me to recognize this organization. Their executive director, who could not be with us today, Oscar de la O, was my treasurer when I was the chairman of the Mexican American Political Association of the San Fernando Valley way back in 1986. He was a resident of Panorama City at the time, so I know that he has moved on to do some incredible work with Bienestar, and I know this organization is having tremendous impact and saving lives in Los Angeles, and so we are very grateful for the efforts of Bienestar. With that, I'd like for Councilmember Reyes to introduce the Wall Las Memorias.
Thank you, Councilmember. I thank you because we all know that National Latino AIDS Awareness Day, October 15th, is a day that speaks to the disproportionate number of individuals are dying of AIDS who are Latino. Quite frankly, our own silence is killing us. While Latinos make up about 14% of the U.S. population, they account for 19% of AIDS cases in the U.S. since the start of the epidemic. As recently as 2004, Latinos accounted for 20% of the new AIDS cases in the U.S. And I felt that pressure, that tension that exists because of Latino, Mexican, Central American, however you want to define Latino, there is a certain level of shame associated to those families, for those families, because of ignorance of what's happening to their very own loved ones. Many will say they're dying of cancer or they're dying of something else, when in fact it is the AIDS that's affecting them. As a result, do not seek proper treatment, are not informed to how they can address that illness. What's more tragic is our own community institutions are in denial. In our case, the heroism of Richard Saldivar and the board and those who put together Las Memorias in Lincoln Heights, it was a struggle to put forth a monument whose message was, this is a health issue. This is an education issue. But many turned it into a homophobic issue. They turned it an issue that spoke to the type of judgments that one makes upon another because of their choices, which in effect became a very punitive environment. As a result, my office, myself, my family took many, many blows because of our posture in defending Las Memorias Wall, a wall that essentially memorializes those who have suffered and died because of AIDS. And it has been Richard Saldivar and his group of people who are able to organize and fight back in a very diplomatic way, using educational opportunities, using the social infrastructure to change this environment. So I apologize for taking so long in this presentation, but it's a very emotional one for me because I see what has happened to my friends, has happened to my family, what's happened to the neighborhoods that choose to remain in silence because of their ignorance. And it is this voice that's speaking out that will hopefully save lives in the future. So thank you, Richard, for this opportunity. Thank you, Richard Salazar, Las Memorias, and everyone that has supported and sponsored, all the corporations and foundations who allowed us to reach this level of maturity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes, for leaving me no time. But we're going to continue. We're going to continue with the presentation. Two speakers we get.
Thank you. And we do.
Let me. As Mr. Reyes was speaking, it reminded me when I attended a memorial service for my cousin Jimmy, who died of AIDS about 20 years ago, not quite 20 years ago, and I was actually running for city council at the time, and I remember that the family was very uncomfortable with the notion of his gayness, and we didn't know how to approach the memorial, so it was very awkward. There were many of his partners were present to give honor to Jimmy, and I remember that I thought it was important for the people to understand that that in Native American culture there's a concept of people who are two-seeing. And that concept is a concept which recognizes that people who have the strength and wisdom and yet have the compassion and caring in their soul are people who are actually more contributing to society. And they were revered by Native Americans. I expressed that story, and instantly the family and friends followed with a tribute to Jimmy in a way that he really deserved. Just as Jimmy was honored appropriately that day, we are honoring all those who understand that Latinoism is not some macho culture. It is about being a culture that mixes knowledge of strength and a power of history with compassion and caring. These people have fought those battles personally, but more importantly, they are saving lives in our community. I just heard on the radio yesterday that STDs are at one of the highest rates that they've been in recent history, and it is absolutely essential that we provide more information to our communities to reduce the occurrence of STD, HIV, and AIDS throughout Los Angeles. Ed and I are happy to support this cause, but the true champions are these organizations who have really put up the struggles and fought to ensure that this message gets out. So Ed and I are very pleased to present these resolutions to Bienestar and the Wall Las Memorias in recognizing Latino AIDS Awareness Day, so that they will continue their good work and that other organizations will help them thrive. Congratulations, and thank you so much for the good work you do every day.
And yes, we have Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Huizar, and Mr. Parks who would like to say a few words before we have them speak. Yes, Mr. Rosendahl?
Thank you, Madam President. It was absolutely heartwarming to hear my two colleagues speak the way you just did. Ed Reyes is my seatmate, so we carry on little conversations on the side all the time, and you're the new guy but the old guy back. But to have you talk about your cousin on a first-name basis, the point is, as an openly gay man, the reality is God created nature. We're an expression of nature. And God makes no mistakes, period. When my first partner, Christopher Lee Blauman, died of AIDS in January of 1995, I went back to his little hometown in Geneva-on-the-Lake in Ohio. Unfortunately, I sat in the back of the room, and I was introduced as a friend and a business associate. Because at that very moment, January of 1995, the homophobia that you talk about in the Latino community was raging in the Anglo community, and frankly, there's still a lot of born-again Christian folks who continue to condemn gay people. And I was quiet in the back of the room. My whole family was there, my brothers and sisters, holding me up at a very tragic moment, a very personal, tragic moment. And to see 12 years later, standing here in front of us, our leaders of this great city acknowledging gay people on a personal level and realizing that, once again, it is not a choice, it is not a preference, it is an orientation of nature. And gays and lesbians, bisexual and transgender people have to either accept themselves and love themselves and feel the dignity of themselves, or continue to live in a world of denial. As an openly gay man, I do many events, and I've had closeted gay people as old as 80, in their 60s, people that you wouldn't even suspect, like you wouldn't suspect me, right? In many ways. So they would come up to me and whisper in my ear that they're gay. They're still frightened and afraid to tell their families and their friends. But I say to the Latino community standing there, you are role models, not just for the young ones, but for the old ones who are still struggling with accepting their identity, loving themselves, and moving forward. If I can say anything good about the AIDS epidemic that has created that wall, is that gay men came out through the tragedy of them having this disease and dying. And so now, there's very few people in America who can say, I don't know somebody who is gay. There are their loved ones, their families, their friends, their relationships. And the greatest civil rights move we all make is telling family and friends who we are, so that people that they love get that same kind of respect. Now, I don't think there are too many people who can say they don't know anybody that's gay. But bless you for the leadership here, and that wall is great. When I did my TV stuff, we used to talk about it all the time on the AIDS show. So thank you so much, colleagues, for doing this in the community there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weisar, followed by Mr. Parks and Mr. Wesson.
Thank you very much, and very well said, Mr. Rosenthal. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to all of you who are involved in providing the education resources to address this issue. We know as well how everyone just mentioned the devastation that AIDS has caused to individuals and families throughout the world of all different races and ethnicities, but some races, some ethnicities have been particularly hit with this, and it's important to address those factors as to why is it that some of these communities have been particularly hit, and you're in the forefront of doing that, so we really appreciate that. And I think we all bear a responsibility when we're in our communities, when we're speaking with our friends, and misinformation is being given out or jokes are being made. We all got to stand up and make sure that we talk about the truths, and we talk and we address these issues head on. So I just want to quickly stand up and thank all of you for the work you're doing. I know in my district you have a strong presence, and we appreciate that. Richard Salazar, all the work you've done is incredible. Sometimes the name comes up as someone who we need to call upon to get the information we need, get the education we need, get the resources we need, so we appreciate that. And my colleagues, Alarcon and Reyes, we appreciate you bringing this today in the forefront so all of the city of Los Angeles could pay more attention to this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Parks, followed by Mr. Wesson and then Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just like, number one, to thank Ed and Richard for bringing this presentation. And I remember, Ed, in my first year here, fighting the Battle of the Wall, and how many times we had hearings in which people thought the park would go away. They thought the communities would leave. They thought Richard was going to put a black cloud over the park, and we found out the park's still there. The wall's there. There's names on the wall, and nothing's bad happened in the community. So, Richard, I appreciate you sticking by, because you were going to all those committees, and I really appreciate Richard was one of the first people we put on our gay task force with the police department, and he led that in a variety of ways. We're pleased in that regard. Benestar, I want to say thank you. You were the first, or really the second organization in the 8th District to bring the 15-minute test and a variety of things, and you have provided a major service on Manchester and the surrounding areas where we didn't have it before. When I got on council, we had no 15-minute test in the whole district. I think MAP was the first one, and you came in with second, and you probably have saved a lot of lives in the 8th District. So I want to just say thank you, and thank the two of my colleagues for bringing you in today.
Thank you. Mr. Wesson.
Thank you, Madam President and members. I want to commend my two good friends, Ed and Richard, for bringing you here today. For all of us, even though I know I'm willing to admit it, that age is very personal, having lost 4 members of my family, twins, my cousins Terrell and Daryl, who for so long, suffered. And it's just, we can beat this thing, and we can reduce this disease if people are aware, and if people do the things that they need to do to protect themselves. So I just wanted to rise to let you know that everything that you do, I'm supportive of. I just want you to even do it more and do it better, because the work that you do saves lives. And that is the critical thing. And we in this country need to realize that we have this problem, and we need to do everything that we can to make it better. So for everything that you all have done, God bless each and every one of you.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you so much, and I know there's been a lot of great words said, and I want to thank my friends for what they have done, as well as the leadership at the city level, and for both Mr. Reyes and Mr. Alarcon. I can stand up as a proud Latino. Mr. Rosendahl spoke about his partner. I can speak about my cousin, Jimmy Hester, who passed away of AIDS one of the early years, about 2 years into the epidemic here in Los Angeles. He was the first gay person in my family who was open and out at a time when there were immense pressures not to be. And in our own family, kind of the evolution of our understanding through the sickness that he went through was, while he has been lost to this world, he left behind an incredible legacy for each one of us of understanding and tolerance, and those ripples are still felt today. Not only can we beat it, like Mr. Wesson said, we will beat it. We will beat this epidemic. We will beat it because some of the most unlikely allies we ever would have thought, those born-again Christians that Mr. Rosendahl said, they're focused on Africa and AIDS, and some of them are turning their focus at home now. We see people who are beginning to realize that this is an epidemic that touches all of us. No matter who is at the vanguard of this, it touches every single one of us. And when people see the statistics and the numbers of how many young people are being infected every single day, it makes us make sure that we don't sit back and say, whoa, that was something in the 80s. It's something right here and right now, and I really appreciate you honoring those who have been at the forefront. And Mr. Reyes, let me say especially to you, what you did with the wall in Las Memorias stands for every person, Jimmy and everybody else who passed away, and in the face of tremendous opposition. And, fear is something that's always with us, and fear has to be addressed, but we always have to make the right decision, and you did. And know that many of us around this horseshoe, all of us around this horseshoe, are immensely proud of you for having done that.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reyes, Mr. Alarcon. Thank you. Richard Zaldivar, when you were not gray, right outside there in your, how many years ago was that? 25? 25? 30? Whatever? Okay. Steve Simon for being the quarterback to help push this along, but everybody, it does make a difference. And Ed, I love what you're doing at Lincoln Park and all your parks, especially. And the reason why I really want to stand up is historic markers, plaques, monuments, memorials are inspirations. And someone's going to read it and be inspired to learn. And why? And I'm just saying this, like, sometimes I quote Los Angeles history. It's only because I walked up to the tree that there was a plaque or a monument to read. And I kind of happen to remember that. That will inspire those who walk through the renovated Lincoln Park and know the importance of what this battle is all about, and those who've gone before us. Congratulations to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just before I'll add my 2 cents, but I don't know where Rich Llewellyn went, who was here from the City Attorney's Office, but we remember in 1985 when we established the City County AIDS Task Force because the County of Los Angeles would not establish a commission, talk about the AIDS issue, or thought it was a problem. And many of the people standing behind you were part of that effort. And when the wall, even before I was elected, and I think even before you were elected, Ed, and you were on staff, was a tough issue that people didn't want to support. And we've come a long way, but not far enough on making sure that we are educating people about this disease. It's not on the front pages of the papers anymore, and we need to make sure that it is, and that all of you are very instrumental in making sure it stays at the forefront and we educate people. And with that, Mr. Alarcon.
Yes, before we hear the words of our honorees, we would like to hear from our AIDS coordinator, Stephen Simon.
Good morning, council members, and thank you very much for this incredible recognition and awareness of National Latino AIDS Awareness Day. I'm not going to give you the big speech. You see me up several times a year doing that. The reality is simple. HIV is impacting all of our communities, is impacting the gay community, the straight community, the Latino community, men, women, African Americans, API. It's impacting children still, youth. It is impacting us all. This Awareness Day in Los Angeles is all week next week. We'll be testing. There are more than 24 special testing sites. There's a community forum dealing with public policy Monday at the Disney Hall right up here. At the Kodak Theater, Kaiser Permanente has come in to do a play to teach 800 to 1,000 of our high school students about HIV and STDs. We are not playing around about this. These folks behind me, Bienestar and the Wall Las Memorias, have partnered with the city for many, many years on their programs. We work close together. We work personally. Both are currently drafting recommendations how they can expand HIV testing in the Latino community with our blessing, with our support, and in full partnership. So I thank Freddy Ceja representing Bienestar. I thank Richard, my dear friend of many years. They've done incredible work. You've done incredible work. We're just getting started. The Latino community, one last stat. It's a nightmare across the nation for the Latino community around HIV. In Los Angeles County, the city and county of Los Angeles, nearly half of HIV infections are among Latinos. We have to stop it. We have to focus on our entire communities, our neighborhoods, our networks, and put an end to this. Make sure everyone knows their status, and certainly the City AIDS Coordinator's Office is committed to that. Thank you.
Finally, our honorees. I'd like to introduce Freddy Ceja. Oscar De La O couldn't be here, but we are very pleased that they sent a whole delegation of folks from Bienestar. Freddy Ceja.
Thank you. My name is Freddy Ceja. I'm Public Affairs Director for Bienestar Human Services. We've been in the Latino community for over 18 years providing HIV services. And we've noticed one thing. The epidemic is not getting any better. The statistics were shared today. I want to share another statistic with you. 76% of Angelinos or Latinos who test HIV positive will develop AIDS within a year. 76% in Los Angeles. I developed HIV last year, and my chances of developing AIDS are very good, and that's not a good thing. We have to do more. Thank you.
And speaking of the wall, Las Memorias, I was very honored as a city councilman to say yes to the wall when a lot of folks thought it was uncool for Latinos to say things, and I thought it was absolutely necessary. So I want to thank personally Richard Zaldivar for leading that effort at a really early time when it was really tough. Even before Ed was a councilman, he was fighting that battle, and he won, and because of that, the city of Los Angeles won. The director of Las Memorias, Richard Zaldivar.
Mr. President, members of the council, I really want to thank you, Councilman Alarcon, Ed Reyes, for this acknowledgement. The Wall Las Memorias employees, can you come up real quick? I want everyone to, this is not, I keep on hearing Richard Zaldivar, but this is them. Building an AIDS monument on the east side of Los Angeles wasn't an easy one. talking about HIV/AIDS is not easy. And when we came here, you supported us. And my friend here, Ed Reyes, supported us too. But I know that building a monument was part of an evolution. It was part of an educational journey. It was part of building a relationship. I have never heard Ed speak more passionately as he did today. And for that, I really thank you, Ed. I just want to end by saying that I really love all of you people in here. I know your job is not easy. Sometimes we come in, or I come in, and try to do the business, and then we walk out of the office and we go on to other things. But the philosophy of our organization, for the most part, I think you guys do the same thing, is that we only have so much time on this earth. We've got to make the impact, the greatest impact we can before we leave. And that means to talk about things that we don't like talking about. Because truth affects education, and education saves lives. So we thank you for this. And if we sometimes come and always ask you for this, and ask you for your shoulder, ask you for your ear, Ed has been there for us. And I appreciate that. If we do that, it's because we're on a journey just like you are. I thank you and each and every one of you for this recognition. May God bless you. One commercial I will tell you. Because of the work of the AIDS Monument, we are holding a first ever conference on Latinos, faith, HIV, and AIDS. I invite you, we've given the information, it's free, but you talk about the evangelicals, the Pentecostals, they're going to be there. Because we're working with them to start a new dialogue. And it's because of the AIDS Monument. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Richard, both Richards and Ed. Appreciate it. I'd like to now acknowledge Mr. Rosendahl for our final presentation today.
Congratulations. Thank you. You all have a... Thank you for doing that. Yeah, where is it? I don't know where it is. Maybe it's next door on Smith's. Good morning. We can go from a very serious and significant issue that we all just spoke about to another moment, a moment of joy, a moment of celebration. We have a lot to celebrate, especially us around this horseshoe, first for our jobs and for the opportunity to serve the people, but also serving us as a greater community in Westchester that brought great honor to Westchester by becoming America's winning team in softball. I'd like everybody to come on up and stand right next to me, because having you next to me makes me feel real proud. And could I ask Brett Times to come on over, one of the coaches over here, because you're going to help me in a second. And he's got his, is that your son? Yeah. He has his son in his arms, a beautiful man who's part of the leadership team that is responsible in part for these great ladies standing next to me. Today we're honoring the Westchester Del Rey Little League Junior All-Star Softball team for their fantastic championship season and outstanding performance in the Little League World Series. In fact, when they got back, I happened to be there. We had it in a field. They came in a limo, as they should be honored for what they've accomplished for all of us. This team proudly represented the entire United States Western region, which included 11 states: Alaska, Arizona, California, Hawaii, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Washington, and Wyoming in the international competition during the week of August 12th through August the 18th, 2007. And by the way, they were the big winners there. The team of our local 13 and 14-year-old girls played heroically to win games against Alaska, Arizona, Idaho, and Oregon. Tom Labange, you know this and you love that. I know that, Tom. Tom. And, you know, I guess after winning the regional competition in Tucson, Arizona, the team progressed to the World Series and made it all the way to the championship game. Okay? And frankly, what had happened was that they ended up becoming the one team in the United States, the first one in the United States, and the number 2 team in the world. This is the first team from California to accomplish such a feat. They are America's champions and came in number 2 in the world. And as far as we're concerned, they're number 1 to all of us in this great city of Los Angeles. And I'd like to ask Brett Times to stand next to me, one of the team coaches, with Darrell Lee also, who is here, and Darrell Stewart. But I'd like him to help me read all the names, Brett, that we have that we want to honor right now.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Okay, our team, the girls that are standing behind me, they're Danielle Cullen, Megan Baquet, Monica Cartwright, Sandy Aguilar, Haley Pellitzer, Rachel Lee, Haley Times, Jessica Times, Brittany Evans, Nia Bolton, Camille Glover, Sabrina Stewart, Sammy Jo LaPlante, and Gilly Childs.
Round of applause, everybody. Anybody like to say a word or two? Sure. Seize the moment.
Thank you, Councilman. I just want to say that I'm very proud as a parent and as the manager of the team of these girls and their accomplishments. I think a lot of times you look at the Little League and you look at how they go out and play, and it's a very rewarding experience as a parent, again, and as a coach. As he said, we went through the regionals and we won 5 championships along the way. One of the things about coaching these girls was you had to do very little. They're all friends. They've grown up together in the sport, and it was a great accomplishment for them. So I just want to say again, congratulations to them. And thank you all for having us here today and honoring the girls. It will definitely go down as one of their most memorable experiences. And thank you again.
Great. Thank you all. Come on, we're going to go over here and take a photo. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if we could reconsider first item number 2. We do have 12 members present. So open, I'm sorry? Okay, well, we have 2 other things we're going to do first, and then we will go to those items. Item number 2, open the roll for reconsideration, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Thank you. We'll vote. Okay, we're going to vote on it now. We'll send it forthwith. If you could open the roll on item number 2, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
And that will go forthwith. Item, if we could go to the special meeting.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 12 members present and a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. Seeing no one calling that special, Madam Clerk, if you could open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Thank you. We will adjourn the special meeting. Next item.
Madam President, would you like to go to public comment at this moment?
Yes, we will go to public comment. We do have one gentleman who had written, Tommy Pummer, who had written on item number 59. That item has been continued. If you still want to speak on something else, you can speak now, but item 59 and the contents of that will be next week.
So if I wanted to talk on 59, I'd have to come back?
Next week, yes.
Okay, fine.
Thank you very much for being here. Sky Anderson, Lengani Chase Simi. Okay, Mr. Anderson is not here. Lagani? And I apologize, I think I may have mispronounced your name. I apologize.
First of all, I was accused of being a double agent, holding 2 passports, a Zambian passport and a U.S. passport. So I went back to Zambia and renounced my Zambian citizenship. Now today, it seems my American citizenship is somehow stuck in Zambian governmental institutions. How this happened only amazes me, but I know one thing for sure, and that is Mr. S.B. Siame is responsible for creating this abnormal condition. This past Tuesday, I mailed a very important document to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Nancy Pelosi, describing in detail what has transpired regarding the agreements which Mr. S.B. Siame made with different individuals, both Zambian citizens and foreign nationals. In this document, I also point out that I too made some agreements with both Zambian citizens and foreign nationals. These agreements need to be changed or brought to a conclusion. One particular agreement which I made at the U.S. Embassy in Lusaka, Zambia, concerned my approval allowing white people to be prejudiced over my affairs here in the United States. I made this agreement because at that particular time, and this may sound peculiar, I was rather compassionate towards white people and their apparent need to be prejudicial. Today, the time has come for this type of discrimination to end. I have reached a point where my last ounce of energy has been used up, and all that is left is my body mass, which when moving is by its own inertia and volition. I cannot sustain the terms of this agreement anymore, for fear that I should lose my life. The 5th and 14th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution have bestowed upon me life, liberty, and property. In this regard, I wish for all my human rights, civil liberties, and constitutional rights to be restored as is endowed for my personality and personhood.
Thank you very much. I will go now to the San Fernando Valley for our next public comment card. Miriam Fogler.
I sympathize with all races and creeds too, just like the last gentleman on right to property. That's been substituted with the right to happiness. And this is sort of like what we like to hear in our society, being very jokety, teasing, not being very serious about what's going on here. And I told the union workers last night, I told them, look, you know, these people down here are having the Grand Avenue project, the CRA project in NoHo. Now over here, I just looked and saw they have one now in Councilman Weston's district, which I have very high appeal to him. He's such a gentleman when it comes to animals. And it's a sad thing that they don't realize that you want to pass a telephone tax, put a gang tax, and you want to substitute all this money so that you can use the monies that free up other monies to spend as free as you want. And the city workers don't realize that the city is not going to be in a plus; it's going to be in a minus because you people are continuing to have a spending galore here. You know, it's like. Keep feeding you and feeding you more and more and more. You just want to keep spending and spending and spending. And nothing. And there's no Howard Jarvis here, no Howard Watts, and no Paul Gann saying enough is enough. We're not going to take it anymore. Prop 13 needs to be revitalized and strengthened and brought back to 2/3 on all matters of taxation. This is not fair to have simple majority vote, even if you're slapping it on the February 5th ballot. We should all vote against it because you need accountability of every penny, every dollar you're spending down here at City Hall. From all the developers that you're getting and all the contracts that you're doing, we need to have transparency down here and showing. I'm glad to see you, Leonard Shapiro. I hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That closes our public comment for that item. For our general public comment. If we can go to the first item called special.
First items called special are items 4, 5, and 6, and that was called special by Councilmember Parks.
Hat trick by Mr. Parks. All three will recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask the CEO and the Controller's Office to come up. Karen, you gave us a very in-depth analysis during committee. Could you give the full council a thumbnail of where we are as it relates to the current condition of the reserve fund and the UB, and also for the Controller's Office, if you can concentrate on item 6, which is the more in-depth and the report that's more recent, and just give the council an analysis in that regard, and so that just to brief them on where we are.
Okay, with regard to the status of the reserve fund, you may recall that in our financial status report that we released in August, it followed very shortly after the controller's release of her preliminary financial report that noted that the reserve fund at that point in time was approximately $88 million below the budgeted amount of $201.8 million. At that time, we promised to undertake a review of all encumbrances and all commitments that were still lingering to see if we could release some of those monies to add to the reserve fund. Since that time, we have had some departments repay reserve fund loans, and those repayments have totaled approximately $36 million. However, the increase in the reserve fund is only about 22 because there are also $13.6 million in commitments that we are recommending remain outstanding. So we do have a $22.4 million increase in the reserve fund, so the current total is approximately $136 million. However, that is only 3.07% of our adopted budget, and you'll recall our target was 4.55. So our department is continuing to work with other departments to release encumbrances and commitments, and we are coming forward with a recommendation that any encumbrances prior to the fiscal year 07 be swept and those monies put into the reserve fund.
Okay. We have the Controller. Your comments?
Lyndon Salvador from the Controller's Office. As of today, the emergency account balance is $122 million, which was increased from $116 million. And as of today also, the contingency account balance is $112 million, and this $112 million is before the $86 million budgetary transfer. So after the $86 million budgetary transfer, the contingency account will have a balance of $26 million. Currently, the Controller's Office is balancing its cash flow requirements by using funds from the issuance of the trans and also from available carry-forward encumbrances from the prior year. As to the reserve fund loans, I'd like to add information that the CEO already has mentioned. From the balance of $95 million as of June 30, 2007, our current balance stands at $40 million. We already received 59 million repayments from debtor funds and departments.
Okay. Could you give us a brief overview of what some of the Controller's recommendations are?
The Controller's recommendations, which was already alluded to by the CAO, is to review the encumbrances to determine if they are necessary, and currently the CAO is working with the departments, and we are also monitoring payments from the departments. To review the $85 million transferred to the budget to determine if the full amount of the transfer is required. As of today, the Controllers hasn't transferred that amount because, again, as I mentioned earlier, we're using available cash balances from the trans issuance as well as forwarding encumbrances. Number 3 is for the CAO to work with departments to accelerate payment to the reserve fund advances, and the CAO and departments are currently doing that. Also, the departments they are working out with debtor departments for them to resolve issues related to billings of their expenditures. So if these billing issues are resolved, they're able to repay their the amount that they owe to the reserve fund.
Okay. And then, Karen, let me ask you, has any remarkable changes made on either reserve fund or the UB since we had the committee meeting?
Nothing remarkable. I think I would just want to conclude my remarks unless there are specific questions. that again, this is a very cautionary tale. We are still approximately $66 million below what the reserve fund was budgeted at. And we will be coming forward in the next couple of weeks with our second financial status report, which will have a series of specific recommendations on how we might be able to address that. So we are still looking at the monies in the unappropriated balance as our sort of standby reserve fund, as we recommended in our first FSR, and we would just want to be cautionary about any proposed uses of the monies in the unappropriated balance.
The other thing I'd like you to comment on is that although you're looking for somewhere in the neighborhood of $60-some million to bring our reserve fund up, would you comment on the fact of where are we after we reach that point, about balancing the budget as we go forward on the structural deficit? Where are we at this point?
As I said, we'll be coming forward with our second financial status report in a couple of weeks, but we still forecast that we will be starting fiscal year 09 with a significant budgetary deficit in excess of the $215 million that we reported in August. Okay. We're still finalizing what that forecast will be, but again, it is going to be incumbent upon us to very wisely steward our resources this year, because we will need to have resources at the end of this year to help us with the budget next year.
Okay. And then without giving up all the information in the next financial status report, can you give us a preview of some of the things you're thinking about that will help us get our reserve fund back where it should be, and then as we tackle the structural deficit?
One of the things that we are considering recommending is, of course, basically freezing what's in the unappropriated balance. Again, when our reserve fund is so short-funded, we really need to look to that unappropriated balance as our reserve fund, and that would be because those items were put there because they were programs that were not yet ready or did not have sufficient information for council and the mayor to feel like they could be put in the operating budget. The other items that we will be looking at that I am sure there will be discussion on is asking the council for a moratorium on special event fee waivers. That could generate as much as between $6 and $10 million a year, depending on when we enact it, and that would be something that could readily add to our reserve fund resources.
Okay. Colleagues, the reason I asked for this review is that we went over all three of these reports in depth in committee, but what's important is for us to realize that in the near future, we're going to be asked to make some very important decisions about the financial health of the city, and it just kind of gives you a precursor as to what are some of the things the CAO is looking at, some of the issues or recommendations from the controller, and what we eventually, in getting that second financial status report, will be asked to consider. For those who wonder if it's really a deficit, it is a deficit. I don't believe ever had a situation where our contingency fund was as low as it is today. We are in good shape on our emergency fund if nothing critical happens. But a city of this size and with this operating budget, you would not want to go through a year or at any time and have less than $15 or $20 million in your contingency fund. And that's on top of the issue of the structural deficit to become in this position to have a balanced budget July 1st of next year. So there's a number of things that are going to be of concern. A number of things going to be asked of us in the very near future to be serious about how we're going to attack these problems. And otherwise, we could end up in having, won't predict gloom, but we could end up having one of our worst budget years, and all we're doing is pushing this debt further down the line. Our goal a year ago was to eliminate the structural deficit within 5 years. We made great progress, but this year, due to in the sense of funds coming in under what our expectations are, costs going up, and a variety of other issues, this budget is going to be something which we're going to have to budget monthly as opposed to annually. And so thank you very much, and I'd ask that we move these three reports, and we look forward for the second financial status report.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Parks, I can't tell you how grateful I am for your leadership on budget and the thoroughness that you take things through. You're a real pleasure to work with. Appreciate that. A couple of three questions. Just want to be clear. My fire station in Playa Vista, is opening on Monday, right?
That's my understanding, Councilman.
And we have funds to do that. I have 6,000 constituents, and we have a fire station that is very valuable to the safety and life of my constituents of Playa Vista. So make sure that is in touch. There was rumors earlier in the week this was one of the things they were looking at, and so on and so forth. I have your word on that.
Yes, I think, I want to be clear, though. This council is going to have to make some very tough decisions. And there will be decisions about continuing to provide existing services versus initiating new services. And since the fire station is about to open, we're not going to change that.
Thank you.
But I do also want to sort of put everyone on notice that as I hear discussions of new programs or new initiatives, I want to, again, be cautionary, because it's been my experience that most of the time when we talk about something new, it means new resources. And in this particular year, our resources are very limited. And a metaphor I used with someone the other day is, you want to make an improvement on your house, but you don't get the bonus that you expected, and your income goes down because your employer, and so you have to wait a year. And so that's sort of the situation we find ourselves in right now with this budget, that we really need to focus on continuing to provide the current level of services we are, and think very carefully and cautiously about adding to our financial obligations through new initiatives or new services.
Between now and the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30th, are you looking at having to make cuts in our existing budget?
We haven't gotten that far yet. Obviously, we're going to be coming forward with some financial information that was requested as part of the council discussion on the telephone users tax. I think if you'll recall that discussion, we talked about the fact that a loss of revenue of that magnitude would have very serious financial impacts. That said, even maintaining that revenue, we are still going to have some serious impacts, because we're being hit, as most entities are, by the decline in the real estate market. So we're not going to see the same level of growth. We'll still have growth, but not the same level of growth in our property tax and documentary tax receipts. So our expenditures are staying on a pretty steady growth path. Our revenue isn't growing enough to keep up with it. And so we're doing that analysis now, and we'll be coming forward with more detail in the second financial status report.
And when will that be?
That will be within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, because it is obviously critical to all of us, if we have to take an adjustment of our existing budget between now and July 1, we need to have very robust discussions in going forward with that. Question. I got my property bill for my house. It's the highest tax bill I've ever gotten. Okay? It's gone up and up and up and up and up. So you're getting more money out of me, a homeowner. The question is, over the last 7 years, there's been a tremendous shift of our revenue coming from the new value of homes. And as the homes have been selling, there have been the transactional fee for the sale, plus the new assessment value of the property. Haven't we seen a substantial cash flow into the city treasury over the last 5 years because of that?
You're correct in that we have seen very strong growth in property tax and documentary transfer tax until last year. We were seeing growth rates of 9 and 10% in property tax. However, our other revenue sources have not shown similar growth. So some of them either they've steadied off, or they might be growing at a much slower rate than they have previously. This is one of the issues with the telephone users tax. It has grown, but it has grown not at the rate that other revenue sources have. And so we've sort of been fortunate that property-related receipts have offset either slower growth or declining growth in other revenue sources. So while we've been lucky on that end, it's offset declines in other areas. Also, as we've received those receipts, they've been spent. They haven't been put away somewhere sort of as a rainy day fund. So as they're spent annually, we don't have those receipts available in this year or future years to offset what we're now seeing as declines in the rate of growth in those revenue sources.
I think that's very important that the public understand that, and we look forward to concrete data on that, because my constituents, those who are property owners, are saying we're paying more in taxes than we've ever done before. What's going on down there? So you're going to have to explain that in such clarity that people understand understand that other revenue streams aren't there like there were before, okay? Now, the last question is about the tax. We're going to put it on the ballot. We have to put it on the ballot, this whole business of cell phone tax. Because without that $270 million, there won't be little cuts. There'd be huge, dramatic cuts. Explain that.
Well, again, $270 million doesn't always sound like a big number on a budget that is close to $5 billion. But we do have a number of obligatory expenditures that we make. And when you look at just the proportion of our budget that we devote to public safety, which I think we would all agree is a number one priority, 2/3 of our budget pays just for public safety. So when you start to look at other areas where you might have to take those cuts, they would be very significant and noticeable cuts in other service areas. I think that's probably the discussion that you all will have when the ordinance comes to you, and we will be providing some more information later today on that.
Yeah, and the last thing is the structural deficit. You're going to have to explain it more. People don't understand what that structural deficit means. In part, it is the skyrocketing health care costs of those who have been in the government, are now retired, and our existing reality here. We have to understand that so the public understands it. Thank you for your leadership. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Mr. Labange is our next speaker.
Very much, Assistant Hyde. Thank you. How are we doing on our overtime? And I know I've had challenges in my district where we had to use overtime. How are we doing on overtime? How much is overtime affecting the process of this year's budget? We had a disaster at Griffith Park, and thanks to Recreation of Parks and their readiness and a lot of overtime, they've been able to calm what would have been disasters in some recent rainstorms.
You know, I don't have the specific numbers for each department on where overtime has, but obviously we have had some challenges this year because of unforeseen events like the Griffith Park fire. We did have the overtime related both for LAPD, LA Fire, DOT, ITA, a number of departments. I'm probably missing a couple. Plus the fact, of course, that we now need to make the investment to make sure the park recovers. So those definitely have had impacts on our budget.
I heard you mention about special events. If you're a neighborhood of people who want to have a block party, that's what your city should do to help out. If there is but also on the other hand too, I'll stand here and I'll support the Academy Awards because of what it means to Los Angeles. So I just would want to look at that broad picture on special events and how much it is and what it does. And if we could reduce our cost of what it cost us. Maybe we should have a special event department that works Thursday through Monday as opposed to the other time when find out when all the special events are and have a team of people there and maybe reduce our costs. Maybe we could rearrange how we serve the city so we could serve them better and help reduce the cost. I think we have to look at those type of things. And any consolidation proposals that would make sense?
Well, I think as the year progresses, we're going to be looking at a number of initiatives that we could come forward with. We don't have a study sort of in our back pocket right now on consolidation proposals, but I do think given where we are with the reserve fund and given what the outlook is for our budget over particularly the next 2 years, fiscal year 09, fiscal year 10, we will need to be coming forward to both the mayor and the council with recommendations about how we can really bring expenditure growth and revenue growth more into alignment. Because that's really the problem. It's the structural deficit that Councilmember Rosendahl mentioned, which is our ongoing expenditures, the things we have to pay every year to run the city are growing at a faster rate than our ongoing revenue. And so until we can really bring that more in line, we're going to continue to be having discussions like this one.
And I do think I read in the paper the business section of both the Los Angeles and Long Beach ports are way down, which may have a rumble effect, in the worldwide economy and whatever is going on. So all these different factors that are there to look at. But in your work as an administrative officer, are there any cities in the country that you point to that have ideas that seem to be useful?
Well, I think one thing that sets this large city apart from others is that we are in California. Other cities like New York and Chicago, Washington have more taxing authority and more revenue generating authority vested within local government. And being in California, we have taxpayers that have demanded a certain level of accountability, and that level of accountability includes going to them for affirmative votes for any new revenue sources. So that is a hurdle, another step that we need to go through to grow our revenue. And of course, Prop 13 limits our property tax levy. So other cities don't have those challenges. And we certainly look to them for best practices. We look to them for how they organize various departments, how they organize various functions. And we will continue to do that. And when we see something that looks like it would be would fit the Los Angeles that we know, we'll certainly bring that forward.
And they're good. And the last thing, I stand for special events. Think about a way we could reduce the cost to the city that would do that, and what's important. Also on property tax, the inequity is on my block. There's someone who's lived there for a long, long, long time, and they pay one rate. My wife Bridget and I pay, I think, $4,600 a year on the rate. We bought our home in '98, and someone who bought next door is paying $10,000, and the street cleaner, comes down maybe whenever it does, but the trash truck, et cetera, so the inequity is there. Mr. President, thank you, and we look forward to continued dialogue with you, and check on that overtime. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange, and that is our last speaker for this item. So with that, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
We will accept that report, and thank you very much for the good work on that. Next item, please.
Next is item number 11 that was called special by Councilmember Reyes.
Okay. Councilmember Reyes, item number 11.
Thank you, Council President. This is a very important issue. I want to thank Councilmember Parks and specifically Mike Hernandez for their hard work in making sure we maintain accountability and how we evolve as a city. And we understand the land use impacts of these types of operations that have a profound effect on the quality of life. And it tends to happen in certain areas more than others. And as such, we need to drill down to what are the land use implications and what types of vehicles we have legally to achieve the kind of policy standards that leaves no question this notion of accountability. So with that, I'd like to call the staff up. Is the city attorney with us today? We don't have one. Well, my understanding is that this will be coming back, that we'll be sending this to Plum as well. In terms of drafting the final ordinance, the planning department is describe for the body what the planning department is doing to assure that we have the proper mechanisms in place to address the concerns that affects half of the city.
Certainly. Tom Rothman, the Planning Department. Good morning. In response to the motion of, 2004, the Planning Department has devised a portion of the zoning code that will address large home improvement stores of 100,000 square feet, or greater, and to have them listed as our major projects, which will be required to go through a conditional use process that they are not required to do at the moment, where a certain portion of the site must be allocated for a day laborer location where facilities such as plumbing or bathrooms and water are available. We're not requiring where or how much space should be allocated, since so many of these stores are very varied in how large they can be. But they would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis through our decision makers, so that we can provide some services to these day laborers.
Great. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Miller?
Your committee instructed my office to work with the home improvement stores and their representatives and get their feedback and input on what an ordinance might look like. Again, this is it would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, assessing the impact of the stores and looking at how to mitigate that impact, and whether that's through payment of a fee or establishment of a site. Those issues will be dependent upon the impacts that planning and others determine will result from the stores.
And it also is my understanding that it's very important to articulate the type of evidence we need so that we can establish that level of mitigation based on a case-by-case basis, how the store will be laid out in regards to circulation, open space, required infrastructure in terms of mechanics of the building that allows for a quality of life that everyone should enjoy. Am I correct?
Yes.
Great. So with that, I look forward to seeing an improved and updated draft that includes the evidence so that we can have a sense of direction in how to assess these sites on a case-by-case basis. Thank you.
Great. And just for the record, Mr. Reyes, our land use attorneys familiar with this item, have been in court all day on another item, but they're monitoring this and they'll be working with the departments.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you very much. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me thank Mr. Reyes and Mr. Wesson for getting this to the council so we can give that direction to go forward on the ordinance. Just for background, the reason this prompted our interest is that although we're very pleased to have a major business in the community with Home Depot, almost the day it came in, we also have a day labor issue that now spread from one street to 3 streets. And up until very recently, Home Depot viewed that the ownership of the problem was the city's. And then, having had a short tour on HCED, we realized that we were spending something like $1.6 million of city money to mitigate a problem caused by a business in our city. And so that's what the reason that we move forward on this, hoping that in the future that new Home Depots or any store that has home improvements or attract day laborers would not ever end up with a Slauson and Western in their community where you're now retroactively trying to fit a situation. And we were the subject of a very in-depth news reporting, I think, on Channel 2 recently that showed the 30 or 40 people that greet each neighbor on Ruth Ellen and Manhattan Place every day when they come home, doing a variety of things from socializing to drinking to urinating and to whatever else they're doing on the corner. And so it's important that we embrace businesses that bring good jobs, bring services that are not in our community, but we cannot allow those businesses to walk away without understanding that they are responsible for what they do. We've done a good job on conditional use permits with liquor stores. We don't allow liquor stores to let people sit in front and drink in alleys or put couches in front. And we put those conditions for a reason. We put time on they're open, what they can sell. They can't sell one beer or one cigarette or cups and all that other stuff. So we've done that, and we've done it well. This is a bigger issue that has been driven by, yes, we are grateful for the business, but yet there's not been a real ownership that it's not the city's problem to solve. The city has the total brunt of the problem because the community comes to us, but the solution is within the business. And that's why we need to make this as part of the entitlements. The one thing I'd like to make sure that when we have the ordinance, I don't want to get in a position that we designate what the solution is. We need to make sure that it's written broad enough to where we say there's a mitigation plan. And if that mitigation plan doesn't work, we can go back to them until they fix it. But if we give them the out of building a shelter or a tent or a mobile home or some fixture and it doesn't work, they'll come back and say, we did what you said. So we want a mitigation plan that can be evaluated as the problem exists. And we don't want to be in a situation that they ever come back and say, we did the 3 things you asked, the problem's there, and now we're through. It should be evaluated, and we should be able to go back to them, and they should never stop mitigating the problem in the community. And so that's what we want to make sure, that the language is broad enough that gives us that impact on that business. And then the other issue, and I don't know if Mr. Weston put his button, but I'm going to probably steal your thunder here. We want to make sure that at least for discussion purposes, that the ordinance gives us some options to view how it should be funded. So that was, I think, discussed at committee. I don't think it's been resolved, but I think we need the options in which we can decide when it comes back through committee and then to council, what is the funding mechanism. I think the CLA's made a recommendation, but there's other options out there, but we need to consider them, and I think that would give us the broadest array of things to look at as this moves forward. And I would just ask that we, with all of the review, I think we have 45 days starts if we approve it today, that all those directions from the committee to go meet with the stakeholders and all that can be done so we don't delay beyond 45 days getting it back to the committees. And that's what our request is. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gruhl is next, and then Mr. Alarcon and Mr. Reyes for a second time. Ms. Gruhl.
I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Reyes for your leadership and Mr. Parks, your comments. I think that the way you have designed this is dealing with an issue and a problem, and as Mr. Parks mentioned, we put a lot of restrictions on different facilities, just like when we, as he said, when we're looking at some of the stores that are there, the liquor stores and others. And so I think the time has come for this, and just want to thank you, Mr. Reyes, for your leadership. It was short and sweet, but thank you. That was it, Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you. Very quick. We'll credit your 2 minutes and 30 seconds back. Mr. Alarcon.
Yes, I too just want to weigh in briefly to say that this is a discussion that is a long time coming, but I would only say that I do believe the city has a significant responsibility in this. It isn't just on the developer, and in this case, Home Depot. This is an issue that brings out sometimes the worst in our communities in terms of bigotry and other things, when in fact, if we could figure this out, we could avoid that discussion and get to a more appropriate discussion about Home Depot designing their footprint differently to address the issues that create the opportunities for people to congregate, but also the issue of people congregating and the whys about why they are congregating, and the legitimate discussion that we need to continue to forge, and we have forged for over 20 years since Councilman Bernardi allowed the First Day Labor Center over in North Hollywood to exist. Ironically, there's now a Home Depot a couple of blocks from that site, and it has the same exact problems that Mr. Parks talks about. And so we need good business investment like Home Depot. We need to put people to work and get well-paid jobs instead of having to wait around for jobs at centers such as the Home Depots, as we've seen at Home Depots. We need to recognize that, you know, at the beginning when this discussion used to happen, the Home Depot over on Balboa or the Roscoe in Councilman Bernson's district, when these discussions used to come up, we didn't know about this problem, that this was going to be symptomatic of every Home Depot, but now we know. And so I believe that we have the legal standing to incorporate this in our planning decisions. Recognizing the social impacts of placing this kind of establishment are clearly something that we need to grapple with as part of our planning. So I think that Mr. Parks' comments are certainly well-intentioned. I've known him far too long to question his motives. I think Mr. Reyes is in a good position because I know that he cares deeply about not just economic development, but the social issues, and he cares deeply about, and frankly, all Latino council members feel a certain responsibility and concern about Latinos typically who have to stand at these centers for days on end without sometimes working, and we don't like that any more than anybody else. We want to move forward as a society, and for us to keep playing musical chairs with this issue, dumping it in one community over another community, trying to sneak it in, you know, that's just not dealing in reality. So I applaud Mr. Reyes and Mr. Parks for trying to grapple with something. When we have a company like Home Depot that wants to invest in a major way in Los Angeles, we shouldn't be sticking our fingers in their eye. We ought to be not only applauding their efforts, but recognizing at the same time that responsibility comes with development and figuring out a better way. We need to be partners with them as opposed to creating these divides, not just with Home Depot and the city of Los Angeles officials, but in the community where it gets a little uglier in terms of the kinds of things that, the kinds of statements that are made right at the sites that all of us have witnessed. So with that, I'm willing to participate in any way I can to help get us to a better place in this regard.
Mr. Reyes.
Sorry. Yes, I was remiss in that working with Councilmember Weston as the chair of Housing Community Economic Development, we do need to engage in our share of responsibilities when it comes to public safety, when it comes to the condition of the sidewalks, et cetera, et cetera. But we're also in a position where we assess how these sites are evolving and its impact on other businesses, the whole notion of image, desirability, its impact on the land use. And so trying to approach this holistically is probably our best chance in trying to identify our measures of accountability, not only for the government, but for the private sector, and form that partnership. So I look forward to working with you and Councilmember Weston and his committee and trying to devise, along with the stewardship led by Councilmember Parks and our role as a city and nurturing business while taking care of our community. So thank you. Look forward to seeing that draft so we can move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if there's no objection to reopening, we have two public speaker cards. Pablo Alvarado, if you'd like to come forward, and Eric Estrada. It's a minute afternoon, so good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council President and honorable council members. My name is Pablo Alvarado. I am the director of the National Day Labor Organizing Network, which is an alliance of 36 community organizations that work with day laborers nationwide. I have had the opportunity to travel across the country and visit most of the day labor centers that exist in the country. There are about 65 of them. And I have to share with you that the most successful centers are those that are supported by the private sector, the public sector, and the nonprofit sector. We want to make sure, I'm here today to speak on behalf of the day labor organizations in Los Angeles to support the initiative in front of you. We believe it will make it easier to build the day labor centers and to secure funding for future day labor centers in our beautiful city. I also want to share with you that in the spirit of building centers that are supported by the different sectors, the public, the private, and the nonprofit, we did went and asked the mayor's office to facilitate a series of dialogue sessions between the day labor advocates and Home Depot representatives, because we believe that it is possible to draft an ordinance that would actually accommodate the concerns of all the parties involved, including Home Depot and other home improvement stores. So after a couple of meetings facilitated by the mayor's office, we believe that it is possible to draft this type of ordinance that accommodates everyone's concerns. So I urge you today to support this ordinance, to pass this initiative. At the same time, I would actually request that this process be reconciled with what the mayor's office is doing. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Eric Estrada.
Good morning, Mr. President, council members. My name is Erica Strawn with Home Depot, 3800 West Chapman Avenue in Orange, California. I'm also a resident of the city of Los Angeles. I would like to say that I very much appreciate a lot of the discussion that we've heard this morning and the vibrant discussion that was held at HCED regarding this matter. Many of you have discussed this issue with me personally over the last several years, and know very well that Home Depot is very committed to this issue. We have been part of some very meaningful discussions, and I think many of you know us firsthand from some of the discussions that we've had about issues in your district. But there's a couple points I want to make. One is that it is critical, and I appreciate the partnership of Mr. Alvarado and his group, that the people that are expert on this issue have a thoughtful opportunity to, in the next 45 days, make sure that they are able to submit their comments so that we have a sustainable and working solution. Home Depot has prepared, in anticipation of those discussions, some comments which we'd be happy to share with you, but I won't go into detail today. I'm very appreciative of discussion this morning about alternative mitigation measures and alternative funding mechanisms. I think that those people that are closest to the issue understand the importance of flexibility in the ordinance, and it sounds like there is key support for that, for which we are very appreciative. As many of you know firsthand, Home Depot has rolled up their sleeves and wanted to be part of community solution at a number of our existing stores as well. And we continue to be committed to that issue. And we look forward to being part of the discussion going forward over the next 45 days to come back with an ordinance that makes sense here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments today. I'll close the reopening of our public hearing on that. And if no other council members wish to be heard, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That item, it contains ordinance in it, or no? That will be approved then. Okay. Forthwith, please, without objection on that, to the mayor. Next item, please.
Next is item 21, and that was called special by Councilmember Rosendahl.
Okay. Mr. Rosendahl, item number 21 is before us.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we could, there are some public cards. If we could let the public speak. This has to do, colleagues, with a piece of legislation in Sacramento that Assemblymember Leno has introduced that talks about gay marriage. Many of us know that unless the word marriage is associated with the license, there are certain benefits that you would get. And so many of us in the gay community believe it's essential that we have basic rights so that we can have basic benefits. And frankly, we should leave it up to ministers and those that they serve to determine the blessings. And it shouldn't be across-the-board blanket that says anything that discriminates against gay, lesbians, bisexual, and transgender people. So, Mr. President, if we could have the three community people speak before we do the vote.
Thank you. If there's no objection, we'll ask Eddie Martinez to come forward as our first speaker, and then Alejandro Menchaca.
Good morning. My name is Eddie Martinez. Good morning, Mr. President and Council. I'm Latino. I'm Catholic. I'm also an American. I'm also gay. And I come from a family of 6 kids. I also have a gay brother, and I also have a lesbian sister. And the reason I'm saying this is that being gay is not a choice. It's something we were born with, something that wired me. God created me, created me to who I am today as a gay man. And as I'm saying this, being gay is not gay, but also falling in love. Being gay is not a choice, but also falling in love is not a choice. You fall in love with the person you're physically attracted to, and you fall in love. And the reason I'm saying this is that I'm just as equal as anybody else. I love other people just like everybody else, and I think there should be equality when we talk about recognizing a union between two people. So I'm here in support of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alejandro Menchaca.
Yes, hello. I've never done this, so I'm a little bit nervous and don't really know what the order is. But I would just want to support the motion. I think it's very important that gay rights are recognized by everybody, and I think it's important for 2 very important reasons. One is truth, and as was said earlier, in terms of like how truth helps stop the spread of HIV and AIDS. I think truth about gay relationships helps stop homophobia. And one way to do that is through recognizing them through our government. And so that's one reason. And the second reason is I think if we think back about earlier in this century, it was two people from interracial marriage was not allowed either. And I mean, that was in this century, you know, and I think that it's important to remember that, and that this is the new, however you say that, I don't know, I'm totally not being very clear here, but I hope I'm getting my point across. And so I hope that everyone here is in support of this motion, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Humberto Franco.
Good afternoon, Mr. President and council members. I'm up here just to speak on support of this bill, and I hope you consider it. I think it's really a human issue, and it's about human feelings. And as an openly gay man that did not choose to be gay, would like to have the opportunity and that option to be able to marry someday. Would like all those of you here who are heterosexual and are married, just step out of your shoes and step in ours. And what would it feel like if you were not able to marry? So when this comes before you, just think about that and just feel for a couple of seconds what it is for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl, as well. I was proud to join with you on this with Ms. Perry's second, and also to have carried this the years before you came here, such a strong advocate for marriage equality. And I know many of us joined together in Hollywood to urge this governor, who in his heart I believe believes in this, but needs our encouragement to put a pen to something that passed so much easier this year than it did last year, and each year will be even easier and easier. And I think 20 years from now we will look back and ask ourselves, where were we in history? This governor has the chance to make the right decision, because he will regret in 10 or 20 years, when this is a non-issue, why he stood in the way of full equality and for discrimination. As one of our speakers said, not only were different folks of different races not allowed to marry, people of the same background in California were not allowed to marry when Asian immigrants were prohibited from marrying one another, because we didn't want them coming together and didn't believe in their culture or their ability to have children. A strong institution, though, accommodates social and cultural shifts and recognizes that what we need in this world is more love, not less. What we need is stronger families, not weaker ones. And what we need is the inclusion and not the exclusion of our society. And whenever we push people away to the shadows, and when we push people to the outskirts of society, we all suffer. So I really do believe this is no exaggeration to say this is like Selma in the South, when the racism was going on. We have the most dominant civil rights struggle for our country today is the inclusion of our LGBT brothers and sisters into full citizenship and equality. This is about civil marriage. Religious institutions can hold all sorts of beliefs, and we tolerate those that we agree with and those that we disagree with, but the state should be neutral and the state should embrace all. And we urge the governor to pass this, and with your support we hope that can give him some of that encouragement to do the right thing and to be on the right side of history.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Alarcon.
Members, it's been my pleasure to stand on the floor of the legislature and speak up for this type of legislation. Its current iteration is something that we should all recognize as something that's time has come. The fact of the matter is that as a governmental entity, we should not place ourselves in the position of deciding what one's beliefs are. I believe it's an infringement of civil rights to suggest that we can impose that opinion on the people of California. This is also a matter of love, and you can't stop it from happening when it occurs. It's a very pragmatic issue as well. The fact that a gay partner cannot participate in something like the death of their partner and be involved in the redistribution should their partner pass away in the same manner that a spouse can is simply unfair and not right. If one of my children wanted to be involved in a gay marriage and wanted to distribute their assets and have their partner make that decision with them, I would be the biggest supporter of that. Because, as I said, it is a matter of love. I also believe it's a matter of religious freedom. Certainly, as a Catholic, I know my religion does not allow for this, and if churches don't want to do it, that's fine. But as a civil government, we should not impede what is essentially a contract between two people, and we should not place government in the way of this contractual relationship. And so I think this is a resolution that's certainly appropriate, but this bill, whose time has come, is needed to move us as a society forward instead of keeping us behind the times. And so I applaud it. I support it. I wish I were in the legislature just so that I could vote for this kind of measure and send a loud message. But I'm not, so I thank Mr. Rosendahl for presenting this for all of us to have that opportunity to make that statement.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Madam President. And in closing, I just want to read a quick statement from the mayor of San Diego, who has had a huge sea change in his position on gay marriage. And if I could quote him, he said, "I have close family members and friends who are members of the gay and lesbian community. These folks include my daughter, Lisa, and her partner, as well as members of my personal staff." And I might say many of my personal staff members and other council members' personal staff members are gays or lesbians or bisexual or transgender. For each of them, I find a mate I wish, he says, whom they love deeply and who loves them back. Someone whom they can grow old together and share life's wondrous adventures. And I want their relationships to be protected equally under the law. In the end, I could not look at any of them in the face and tell them that their relationships, their very lives, was less than meaningful than the marriage that I share with my wife, Rana. That's the mayor of San Diego. And I say to you, Arnold Schwarzenegger, your major staff members, your chief of staff and others are openly gay people. I admire you for hiring openly gay people and treating them well. Show real leadership and sign the bill that is now before you. Do not veto it again for political purposes. Your people in this state who love you so much demand that, and you're less than honorable, in my opinion, if you don't sign that piece of legislation on your desk. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. Madam Clerk, if you could open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Thank you. That item has been approved forthwith. I think we'd like to go to item number 53 next. Is Ms. Perry or Mr. Garcetti going to speak first? Ms. Perry.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to get to my mic. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm so glad that Mr. Garcetti joined me in this. This is about making sure that all young people have a level playing field and respecting each other's religious practices and beliefs and observances. When I read this in the paper, I was kind of surprised that a competition, I guess, an annual competition was scheduled over a period of time when people are observing one of the highest holy days of the year, Passover. And I read the article 2 or 3 times to see if I could make any sense, where was the logic and all that, and I thought, well, why would you want to exclude a large segment of our population, our society, for something so positive and something that is so good for young people. And I talked with our council president, and he felt the same way that I do, and that we urge and ask the California High School Speech Association to reschedule the event and make it such that everybody can compete at the same time in the same place, and to try to be a lot more aware in the future that this sort of scheduling insensitivity, if you will, doesn't occur again. And it's a good competition. It's a great thing to do. And all doors should be open to all students. No door should be closed. So with that, I hope that you'll join us after Mr. Garcetti speaks with an aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Mr. Garcetti.
Over here, Madam President? Is that right if I say? Okay. Thank you. I just want to thank Ms. Perry on this, and we do urge this change to happen. I think it's very important. We have a number of members of our Jewish community here that are very excited about this speech tournament, but unfortunately are prohibited from coming because of Passover. If we can stand together on this, I know this has been of interest throughout our community to ensure, as Ms. Perry said, that equal access to one of the state's preeminent youth competitions is open to everybody. We can understand the logistical questions, and we're willing to work through these to make sure that the California High School Speech Association can overcome them. But just as scheduling something on Christmas or scheduling something, on another notable holiday would not be in the schedule, we believe this shouldn't too. So we ask for your support today, and thank you, Ms. Perry. It's great to join with you on this item today.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. This item is now before us. Seeing no other speakers on the queue, Madam Clerk. Yes, they had already had public comment, so that's why the public hearing, but if you'd like to go ahead, we'll open public comment for you. Thank you. Allison Mayerson. Yes.
My name's Allison Mayerson. I'm Senior Associate Director of the Anti-Defamation League, a 94-year-old Jewish civil rights agency whose mission is to fight anti-Semitism, discrimination, and bigotry of all kinds. ADL has spoken to the City Council on other occasions, most recently about human rights for immigrants. Today, I come before you as an advocate for the Jewish community. Thank you to Council Members Garcetti, Perry, and Gruhl for sponsoring this resolution. Along with many other groups, ADL has expressed to the California High School Speech Association that this could cause a tremendous conflict for Jewish students, teachers, and coaches who would have to choose between observing this holiday with their families or participating in the championship tournament. The irony of all this is that we're talking about a debate tournament sponsored by a group whose mission is to teach students about peaceful resolution of conflict in a diverse society. I want to share a message from a recent Taft High School graduate who's currently a freshman at UC Berkeley, and I quote, "I participated in speech and debate all 4 years in high school. Attending the state tournaments were some of the greatest highlights of my life. And now to think that my 2 younger sisters will not be able to attend their first state tournament because of an inconsiderate act is quite disheartening." End quote. I urge you to pass this resolution. In doing so, you help send the message that the community at large wants to see this tournament date changed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate your efforts on this. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Thank you. Colleagues, we have one closed session item that Mr. Parks is recused from. We only have 11 members present. And Mr. Garcetti was excused at 12:15. So we are going to, and my apologies to the departments that are present here, we are going to go into closed session on one item, and then we will go back to the City Council meeting. Yes, Mr. City Attorney.
And Madam President, I just spoke with the attorneys on item number 58. If we could continue that to Tuesday,
Okay.
that
That'll
would be
be
preferable.
continued to Tuesday. So again, my apologies to those of you in this room. We will still take your items. We hope it will not be long. We will come back into open session on the remainder of the items, which is 22, 27, 29, and 50. I believe it is 52. Thank you, Ms. Perry. If I could ask the department to come forward. Thank you for your patience. Colleagues, as many of you know, parking policy is actually a powerful tool in the fight against congestion. The department set off in probably over a year ago in establishing and starting to look at parking policy and particularly parking meter upgrades. You have before you today, if you look on your desk, a wonderful little map that shows some of the new multi-space parking meters and advanced space meters that will be put in across the city of Los Angeles. As you know, the number of parking meters that we have, many are broken, not all of them, but a percentage of them. Also, frustration as to inability to use some of the newest technology, which may be credit cards, other ways in which, if you can't find those quarters, that you're doing there. So this policy that we came back with was, and I'll let the department talk about what percentage of our meters will be in this somewhat pilot. It's not considered even a pilot program. It's a implementation program that starts with a percentage where we will come back and actually do an RFP for the remainder of them. But you'll see where these new parking meters will be placed. And want to mention that the next topic in our committee is also talking about parking meter rates. There are many, many studies that talk about parking meter rates and how it impacts congestion around communities. And some of our parking meter rates have actually never been increased or haven't been increased for more than 17 years. And I know the department will be coming back with that very soon. So if I could just if you could, Amir, I know you've been here a while, just briefly talk about this program and us moving forward on our parking meter strategy.
Thank you, Councilmember Grewal. Amir Sadati, Assistant General Manager, LADOT. I'm joined at the table with Dan Mitchell, our Senior Engineer in charge of meter technology. We're excited. Today is a good day. We have continuously been working, as the Councilmember Grewal mentioned, for the past 18 months on meter technology. Continuation of many efforts, pilot programs, studying other cities, going to a lot of different measures to make sure that we have the best technology for Los Angeles. Council gave the approval back on May 30th of 2007, our recommendation to do an initial deployment of the meter technology. And the recommendation was roughly to change out about 10% of the single-space meters, advanced single-space meters, and another 5% of multi-space meters. So roughly it's about 15% of our meters, or roughly 6,000 parking meters, will be changed out during this initial deployment phase with the new technology. In the report, there's on page 8, I believe, there's pictures of the different technology that we have chosen for this initial deployment extended pilot program, and those are the McKay Guardian single-space meters, the Duncan VM multi-space meters, and the Digital Shelby multi-space meters. We will be working on a deployment plan, and the map in front of you demonstrates the deployment location for this fiscal year. We will begin installation as early as November of 2007 with the advanced single-space meters and some multi-space meters beginning in the off-street lots, and continue that beginning February of 2008 on on-street locations. We plan to implement this program in approximately 20 meter zones throughout the city. Almost every council district that has meters will be included in this initial deployment. We will be doing the installation with our in-house staff, our meter technicians. We will be working with our traffic officers to help us get feedback on the enforcement of the new technology. Those lessons learned will then be part of the request for proposal that we'll be releasing May of 2008 for the remainder of the city. With that, there's also a scheduled timeline in the report that talks about the installation. So we will be beginning November of 2007, continuously working through May of 2008, with the deployment of these three different types of technology.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam President, and colleagues. It's my hope that you will look at those maps and where they're going and work with the communities, try to educate them about this new parking meter technology, which is, and I want to thank the department for moving this forward, and you, particularly Amir, because you've been living this since you first came to the city, but moving forward to this, looking at a creative way where we were able to piggyback on some other contracts, but then go out to RFP for the remainder. I think this is going to help us get into the 21st century, increase, I think, the experience by our meter users, as well as the technology in collecting the funds associated with that. So thank you very much, Madam Chair. I don't know if there's anyone else who wanted to speak on it.
Actually, surprise. Mr. Reyes?
Just one real quick. With these new parking meters, is there an educational component for those who don't speak English, who don't have, in other words, there has to be a transition. I had a meeting in Chinatown. We had the Transportation Commission there. Overwhelming presence of community saying we feel we're being singled out because the meter cars that give tickets are literally circling in one block, just trying to see who they can give tickets to. So you have that impression that the city is trying to make money off communities because of the pressure we feel of the lack of parking. Do these new meters in any way address that dynamic?
Councilman Reyes, that's an excellent question, and I apologize for not explaining that better in my presentation. There will be a marketing campaign and an outreach program associated before we implement the new meters. The new multi-space meters have the capability of being multilingual. So they have the ability for public to push a button and choose many different languages, which would then run them through. In addition to that, as I mentioned, we will be providing a marketing campaign that would consist of information on the webpage, brochures, flyers in different languages, attending community meetings and neighborhood councils with all of that information to do a good outreach program. The other item you mentioned with the crunch of parking, our officers are one of the best officers in the city, and they continuously do their job in order to make sure that we're providing the necessary turnover for the businesses.
Is there any way to prove, I don't mean to cut you off, but is there any way to prove that you don't concentrate on one area or type of neighborhood over others? Is there a way to understand how you use your workforce and where they're being allocated so that that community doesn't feel that it's being targeted?
I'm happy to meet with your staff or attend any community meeting to provide you the information. The city, we have deployment schedules, we have beats, we have complaints that come in. So there are different types of programs that constitute our deployment schedule, council member. But I assure you, we have in any way would target any particular community or neighborhood in any way. We are
I
providing.
I just felt compelled to ask it because I know many folks are listening to your presentation. I know it's in the back of their minds. I've been hit with it several times, and we'll follow up to see if there's a strategic way of addressing it without being accusatory.
We'll be happy to work with your office or any other council district.
Thank you.
There are no further speakers in the queue. Madam Clerk, would you please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
All right, next item.
Next is item number 27, and that was called special by Councilmember Perry. There are two reports on this file and also an amending motion, and that motion has been distributed.
I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much. If you would just move the HCED report, and I believe the amending motion is circulating. We can just vote on it. Vote on what's before us right now.
The motion has been circulated. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
10 ayes.
Thank you. Next item.
Next is item 29, and that was called special by Councilmember Wesson. There are two reports on this file as well as an amending motion, and that motion has been distributed.
Thank you. Mr. Wesson. Amending
Just an
motion?
amending motion that's around the report.
Okay. Amending motion that's been
You did this for me, yeah.
sent around on this item?
Your item. This was, I called it on behalf.
You called it on behalf of Mr. Weiss. Okay, Mr. Weiss has an amending motion that has been submitted, so we'll vote on the item with the amending motion.
He was using the computer, and I wanted just to give him a couple extra inputs, you know.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, open the roll on this item, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
10 ayes.
Thank you. Next item?
Next is item number 52, and that was called special by Councilmember Perry.
Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This will be very, very quick. This is an ongoing situation in Jena, Louisiana. The cause of great concern to many. Has stimulated a very active civil rights response throughout the country, and we wanted to send a message to the families of the young people in, I believe it's pronounced Jena, Louisiana, that we here in Los Angeles are in support of their efforts to seek justice, and that we want them to know that they are not alone, and our concern here as well, given some of the incidences that have taken place in Palmdale, Lancaster area. So I don't know whether other colleagues will speak, but I wanted to put that on the record. Okay.
Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to support Mrs. Perry's motion on the sense of this has been a national and international incident, and I must have had no less than 4 or 5 busloads of 8th District residents that recently took the trip to Jena. It then correspondingly, and many people will do, is relate this incident with some community incidents in Palmdale. And so it's one of those things that has a slow burn in the community to where, in many instances, could cause some ignition as people begin to have less and less faith in government that represents them. And so I think that we clearly should, as a council, show our support that other governmental entities, whether it's the Congress of the United States has expressed an interest, or whether it's the Department of Justice, needs to look into the disparity in how people are being treated, and young people particularly, where some are tried as adults, others are given reprieves as it relates to similar charges, because just as we've seen history in some of these cities, particularly down south, with voter rights and a variety of other things, they've been slow in coming around on some of these issues of giving people their civil rights. And so I think it is important for this council, as we've done in the past, to have our voices heard as it relates to this issue. It's a human rights issue and a civil rights issue, to give that support, particularly for those community residents that took the time on their own dime to go down and express their views on this.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Madam Clerk, open the roll on this item, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
10 ayes.
Thank you. Next item.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those will be posted and referred.
Madam President, there are excuses on the desk.
Okay, we'll go through those excuses, please.
Council President Garcetti requests to leave at 12 noon on October 26 for personal business. A motion is required.
Mr. Weisar moves, Mr. Parks seconds.
Councilmember Gruhl requests to leave at 12:30 p.m. on October 19 for city business. This meets city policy.
I will be excused.
Oh, second that, Bill.
Revolt. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Parks requests to be excused on December 14th for city business. This meets city policy.
December, you're planning ahead. You will be excused. Next item.
Councilmember Smith requests to leave at 11:15 a.m. on December 5th and to be excused on December 14th for city business. This meets city policy.
He will be excused.
And that clears the desk.
Thank you. Announcements, Mr. Weisar.
Prior to announcements, Madam President, can we send item number 60 forthwith, please?
Yes, we will move 60 forthwith. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have announcements, colleagues? Mr. Labange, followed by Mr. Reyes.
Yes, on behalf of Councilman Tony Cardenas, the Mission Community Hospital and our Department of Public Works invites everyone to the second annual Senior Health and Safety Fair this Saturday, October 13th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Japanese Garden at Sepulveda Basin, right off of Woodley and Victory in Burbank Boulevard. Councilmember Cardenas wants everyone to come and enjoy and learn about Senior Health and Safety Fair. He's joined also by Senator Adia and Assemblyman Fuentes.
Thank you.
I said it.
Mr. Reyes.
A couple of announcements. One is tomorrow at 12 o'clock in Lincoln Park, we are celebrating the brand new carousel. It's a carousel that will bring a lot of fun and good times for a lot of kids who won't have access to Disneyland or the beaches. Lincoln Park used to have a carousel. It was burned down in the early 70s. So as a youngster, I remember the popcorn and the hot dog smell and this music of the carousel. Well, we're bringing it back, bring good memories for many, many kids in the Lincoln Park area. We're sharing with District 14 and District 1. We're right on the border there on Soto. So welcome one and welcome all to our brand new carousel in Lincoln Park.
What time would that be on tomorrow?
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock. It's
I might have a 4-year-old that would like to do that. So.
Thank you, Council President.
I know Mr. Alarcon just wanted to comment on that as well. You want to continue on?
I have one more announcement, but you want to comment on that one?
I just wanted to share with you that one of my greatest disappointments as a child was that I never got the ring at the carousel at Lincoln Park. Oh. And I hit it, and it went flying off, but I never was able to get it. They used to give a ring, and then you get a free ride, and so, but my sister got one.
Oh, man.
And I was so disappointed that she got one, and I wasn't able to. So I'm so glad it's coming back. I hope they have a ring. They probably won't, but...
well, now that you mention it...
maybe I can get one.
Oh, there's a horse with your name on there. Okay. And the other thing is that we got going here is Livable Places, along with Metro and Homeboy Industries, are having a walkabout and bikeabout. I want to talk about the neighborhood around Chinatown, the Cornfield, Mead Housing, and get a perspective from the community folks, the people are actually walking the streets, using these facilities, the new state park, Dodger Stadium, Mead Housing, the river. It's all connected with the Gold Line Station. They'll be walking the streets to talk about how we make it friendlier, safer for pedestrians. We invite you all.
Thank you. Mr. Parks, you have an announcement.
Yes. I have an announcement. MTA had asked that we advise the public that they're going to have 3 scoping meetings dealing with the Crenshaw Prairie Transit Corridor. The first being Monday, October 15th, 6 to 8 at Darby Park in Inglewood. The second being October 17th, a Wednesday, at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center, 4718 West Washington. That's 6 to 8 p.m. And the third meeting on Saturday, October the 20th, 9 to 11 a.m. at Audubon Middle School on 4100 block of 11th Avenue. This is a precursor to an RFP, and they're asking for a significant amount of community input. The goal for the Crenshaw Prairie Transit Corridor meeting is to one day connect the Expo line, the Red Line, and the Green Line all through the Crenshaw Corridor. And also I'd like to announce that public come out and really support the Taste of Soul on Crenshaw. Herb Weston will be there, Jan Perry, myself, Supervisor Burke, sponsored by the LA Sentinel, V100 radio, television, and McDonald's, a host of artists in the community between 10 a.m., 6 p.m. from on Crenshaw between King and Rodeo Road.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Any other announcements? If not, we have lost a quorum, so we will not be doing adjourning motions today. Any adjourning motions you may have for next Tuesday. Thank you all very much. Have a great weekend.